Hey guys, welcome to StrawHat Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Luffy met sun god Nika and had multiple devil fruits power? Part 1. This story is Resurgence of the Pirate King by alenthedragon. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button, as your one like motivates me to bring more stories, and subscribe the channel if you are new so you won't miss our latest videos. The sun hung low over Raftel, casting a golden hue on the waves that crashed against the shore. Luffy stood at the water's edge, his heart as heavy as the sky above. He had finally reached the last island of the Grand Line, but the victory felt hollow. The illustrious dreams and laughter of his crew now felt like ghosts in the wind. Luffy's gaze drifted over the graves he had painstakingly arranged for Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei. Each marker was a testament to their strength and sacrifice. They had fought valiantly against Blackbeard and Sakazuki, trying to defend their dreams, their meals, and the bonds they cherished. But now, they were gone. The memories of their laughter echoed painfully in his heart. His fists clenched tightly at his sides as he thought of the devastation that had unfolded, the brutal assault of Blackbeard's crew and the relentless brutality of Sakazuki. They hadn't just taken his crew, they had ripped apart his entire world. Vice Admiral Garp, his beloved grandfather, had perished in their quest for control, along with the once great Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Luffy could still see Garp's proud smile and felt the weight of his absence bearing down on him. Blackbeard's treachery had known no bounds. Hancock slain on Amazon Lily, Yamato lost in Wano, each loss stacking upon the mountain of grief he carried. The buster calls issued by Sakazuki against the islands Luffy had called home, from Fuchsia Village to Alabasta, Water 7, and Dressrosa, had decimated not just his comrades but entire communities. Luffy fell to his knees, the sea breeze mixing with the tears that streamed down his face. "I'm so sorry, everyone," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I thought I could protect you. I wanted to be the Pirate King, I wanted us to be together." But even in despair, the ember of his indomitable spirit flickered within him. Luffy recalled every lesson he had learned, every battle fought alongside his friends, every moment of joy and laughter that had built the bonds they shared. Their dreams lived on within him, igniting a fire in his heart. As the sun sank below the horizon, casting the world into twilight, Luffy forced himself to rise. The pain of loss would not break him, it would fuel his resolve. He remembered Nami's relentless spirit, Zoro's fierce loyalty, and Sanji's protective heart. His crew deserved more than sorrow, they deserved a legacy. "I will make it right," he vowed, clenching his fists until his nails dug into his palms. "I'll rebuild, for you guys, for everyone. I won't let your sacrifices be in vain." As Luffy stood by the shore, still grappling with the weight of his loss, a voice suddenly broke through the fog of his despair. He turned around, and disbelief washed over his features. There, before him, stood a man who resembled his Gear 5 form, a vibrant aura surrounding him. "Man, you are really strong, StrawHat," the man said, a smile playing upon his lips. "Even after losing everything, you still find hope." Luffy's heart raced in confusion and a flicker of recognition. "Who are you?" he asked warily. The man chuckled, his eyes shimmering with mischief and wisdom. "I am Nika, the one and only. And I'm here to give you a second chance, or rather, a way to change your destiny." Luffy blinked, processing the revelation. "Change my destiny? What do you mean?" Nika's grin widened. "You already possess my fruit, the gum fruit. It's funny how you thought it was called that, but there's so much more to it. To unlock my true power, you need 2 more devil fruits, the Guro no Mi and the Moa no Mi. And as luck would have it, I have both here with me, since their previous owners are no longer around." Luffy's mind raced, recalling the infamous Enel and his fall from the sky after their encounter. He felt a surge of determination, but also a sense of dread at the thought of eating 2 devil fruits. Nika produced the vibrant fruits from behind his robes and held them out toward Luffy. "Eat them. If you survive, I'll tell you the second part of my deal." The fruits glimmered temptingly in the fading light, but a nagging thought crept into Luffy's mind. Eating 2 devil fruits at once was a death sentence in the world of pirates. However, the fire in his heart urged him to take the risk. He remembered what he was fighting for, his friends and the dreams they all shared. Steeling himself, Luffy took a deep breath and grabbed the Guro Guro no Mi and the Moa Moa no Mi. Without hesitating, he stuffed both of them into his mouth and swallowed hard. A surge of energy coursed through him, unlike anything he had ever experienced. The exhilarating sensation turned into chaos as the powers of the two fruits collided within him. Thunder roared in his veins, and the very air around him crackled with electric energy. Visions of past battles, dreams, and the faces of his fallen crew filled his mind, amplifying his resolve. Nika watched with a mix of anticipation and amusement as Luffy writhed on the ground, the internal struggle evident on his face. "You've got to harness this chaos, Luffy. Control it, you're the captain, it's time to show what you're made of." Luffy's head throbbed as he slowly opened his eyes, reality coming back into focus. The pain was intense, a white-hot wave that surged throughout his body. He had consumed 3 devil fruits, more dangerous than any reckless gamble he had ever taken. As awareness returned, he found himself looking at Nika, who was leaning against a nearby rock with an amused expression. "Man, I didn't think you'd survive that, but you did. You're the first person to harness the power of 3 devil fruits at once." With a grunt, Luffy pushed himself up, feeling the immense power coursing through him. It was exhilarating but overwhelming, a chaotic whirlwind of energy that challenged his very essence. Eager to test his newfound abilities, Luffy stretched out his arm, feeling the familiar elasticity of the Gum Gum fruit. But alongside it surged the crackling energy of lightning and a deeper understanding of the Moa Moa fruit's potential. An idea sparked in his mind, and he smiled broadly. "Gum Gum pistol," he shouted, launching his fist forward. But this time, he focused on harnessing the power of both the Guro Guro no Mi and the Moa Moa no Mi. He covered his arm in electricity and, inhaling deeply, called upon the new power coursing through him. Gum Gum Taser Whip, ×3. As he unleashed the attack, the combination of all 3 powers sent a shockwave through the air. The fist crackled with lightning, striking a nearby rock with explosive force. The collision resulted in a blinding flash, reducing the stone to dust in a split second. Luffy jumped back, eyes wide with astonishment. "Man, this is intense," he exclaimed, adrenaline rushing through him as he reveled in the display of power. Nika clapped his hands together, a grin on his face. "Yes, now, for the second part of my offer. I will be sending you back in time, about 4 years to be precise. You'll arrive a couple of days after Ace left." "Back in time," Luffy repeated, excitement tingling in his chest. It was a chance to change everything. "Yes, but I can't make you younger," Nika continued, his expression becoming serious. "You'll still be 19 years old, so you'll have to explain to Garp why you're not the 15-year-old boy he last saw. And I believe you should tell him everything." Luffy nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. This was his chance to prevent the tragedies of the past, to save his friends before it was too late. "I'll do it. I'll tell him everything and make sure I change things for the better." Nika's eyes sparkled with approval. "Remember, Luffy, the past is not something to dwell on but rather to improve upon. Use your knowledge wisely. You have the potential to build a future where no one has to suffer as you have." With a firm nod, Luffy felt the weight of the responsibility settle on his shoulders. He would not waste this chance. The memories of his fallen crew filled his heart with determination. They deserved to be saved, and he would take every step necessary to ensure that their dreams could flourish. Nika raised his hand, forming a portal of swirling energy. "Are you ready?" Luffy took a deep breath, feeling the electrifying energy still pulsing through him. "I'm ready. Let's do this." As Nika summoned the portal, Luffy felt an overwhelming surge of determination. Before stepping through, an idea sparked in his mind. He needed the weapons of his fallen comrades. They were integral to their journeys, and as much as he wanted to honor their sacrifice, he also wanted to ensure they were prepared for the challenges ahead. He dashed to Zoro's grave first, unearthed the Sandai Kidetsu and Shisui, and placed them carefully atop the grave to show respect. The swords, imbued with the will of their previous owners, felt powerful in his grasp. Next, Luffy ran to Nami's grave and retrieved her beloved Klimatak, the tool that had often saved them from perilous situations. He held it tightly, knowing she had worked so hard to perfect her abilities with it. Returning to Nika, Luffy set the weapons in front of him. "This is my plan. I'm giving them their weapons early. I also plan to gather my crew sooner. We'll spend 2 years in the East Blue, training and getting stronger. Nika raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You think bringing them back to the East Blue will make a difference? Luffy nodded vigorously. Exactly. I'll also get Robin, Chopper, Frankie, and Brook and bring them to the East Blue with us. This time, I plan to conquer the East Blue first. I realized my mistake during my previous journey. I may have been a Yonko, but I didn't take territory. Nika's eyes glinted with approval as Luffy continued. This time, I'll build our strength in the East Blue before moving on to Paradise and then the New World. I won't just be the king of the pirates, I'll be the emperor of all seas. I will surpass Galdi. Roger. Well, it looks like you're ready, Nika said, a satisfied smile crossing his face. But remember, don't tell your crew that you're from the future, not yet anyway. Luffy nodded earnestly. Okay, but I'll have to tell them when we reach Paradise. They'll need to know the stakes. Agreed, Nika replied. That will do for now. Prepare them for the challenges of the past, but remember, the future is what you make of it. With a determined grin, Luffy stepped into the portal. In an instant, he was transported back to Fuchsia Village. The familiar sights came into view, but everything felt different this time. The air was charged with potential, and Luffy felt it coursing through him. As Luffy raced through Fuchsia Village, a familiar presence suddenly enveloped his mind. Luffy, came Nika's voice, echoing inside his thoughts. Surprised, Luffy paused mid-step. Nika, is that you? Yes, it's me. I'll be guiding you during this journey, Nika replied. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, there are some drawbacks. Luffy furrowed his brow, concern washing over him. What drawbacks? Nika took a moment before answering. First, Enel and World are dead in this timeline, which is fortunate for you. But here's the catch. You can't use Gear 5 anymore. Luffy took a moment to process this. No Gear 5, that's okay. I still have Gear 4, along with my Haki and the powers of the 3 Devil Fruits. I can manage without it. Exactly, Nika reassured him. But since you brought back Zoro's swords and Nami's Kleem attack, they don't exist where they should be in this world. Got it, Luffy said, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Enel was a prick, but I guess we all have to start somewhere. No harm done there. Just then, another voice broke through the air, one that sent an involuntary wave of emotion crashing over him. Luffy, where are you, you brat? Come out and greet your grandpa, or I'll give you a fist of love. Tears prickled in Luffy's eyes, and his heart swelled painfully as he recognized his grandfather's voice. Garp had always been a force of nature in his life, but that power now felt like a reminder of everything he had to explain. Oh man, what am I going to say to that crazy old man? Luffy mumbled to himself, panic setting in. The reality of his age washed over him again. He was 19 now, not 15 as Garp remembered. He couldn't just ignore the truth about his past, and he certainly couldn't lie to his grandpa, who would see right through any fabrication. But how would he explain his sudden maturity? Luffy, Nika's voice interrupted his thoughts. Stay focused. If anyone can explain something complicated, it's you. Just be honest. Garp will understand. You have to embrace this new opportunity. Luffy took a deep breath, pushing away his anxieties. You're right. I can't avoid him. I have to face this. With determination solidifying in his chest, he turned back toward the sound of Garp's voice, ready to confront his grandfather. As he stepped into view, he took a moment to push back the worry and let a smile form, a genuine grin that expressed both his excitement and apprehension. Garp stood a few meters away, his arms crossed with a mischievous glint in his eyes. He looked as formidable as ever, a strong figure who had shaped Luffy's childhood in more ways than one. As Garp approached, he eyed Luffy with a mix of confusion and curiosity. There you are, you little brat. He called out, but as he drew closer, his eyes widened in shock. Luffy, is that you? What happened? And how did you get taller? Gramps, listen, Luffy said, urgency creeping into his tone. I have a lot to tell you. I'm Luffy, but I'm from the future. Garp burst into laughter, throwing his head back. Oh, I see, you think you can fool me with this little act. Where's my grandson? Talk now. Luffy felt panic surge within him. He knew how formidable his grandfather was, and even with the powers of 3 devil fruits and all 3 types of hockey, it wouldn't be an easy fight if Garp decided to attack. "Gramps, it's me. Please, listen to me," he pleaded, desperation lacing his voice. Garp narrowed his eyes, still skeptical. "Not buying it, mister. I'll give you 10 seconds to tell me where Luffy is, or consider yourself a dead man. But I must admit, you do look like him. You've been in many battles, huh?" Luffy realized time was running out as Garp began counting down. Uncertainty swirled in his mind, but he quickly formed a plan. "Gramps, ask me something only I would know." Okay, Garp relented, still sizing him up. "It's only right to grant a dead man his last request. If you're Luffy, then tell me, how did I train you?" Luffy's face brightened with a confident smile as he recalled the wild memories of his training. "Well, you threw me into the jungle, taught me to fight in the deep pit, and you tied balloons to me and let me up in the air." Garp's expression shifted drastically as realization dawned on him, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Luffy, what the hell happened to you?" "Gramps, it's a long story," Luffy admitted, taking a deep breath. I came back to change things. I lost everyone in the future, and I need your help to make sure that doesn't happen again." Garp's demeanor softened slightly, but confusion lingered. "You're telling me you can travel through time? How is that even possible?" Luffy took a deep breath, ready to recount his incredible journey to Garp. "All right, Gramps, here it is. I became a pirate, and to fulfill my dream of becoming the Pirate King." He watched as Garp's expression shifted from skepticism to intrigue as he continued. "I left Fuchsia with my boat and started gathering my crew. I met Zoro first. He was the strongest swordsman I could find. Then Nami, who's a genius navigator. And you won't believe this, but I even recruited Nico Robin, the devil child." Garp's eyes widened in shock. "What, that girl? And you also brought in Jinbei?" Luffy nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, and he's amazing. After that, I trained for 2 years with the Dark King Rayleigh Sabayati. I learned so much during that time. But then I went back and ended up facing Big Mom and Kaido." Garp's expression shifted, a mixture of pride and disbelief on his face. "You faced 2 of the emperors and came out on top." "I did. I became a Yonko after defeating them." Luffy continued, but he noticed Garp's face darkening as he recounted the next part of his story. "But Ace, things didn't turn out well for him. I tried to save him, but I failed." Garp's face twisted with anger as memories of Ace flooded his mind. "I let Ace die," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. The pain of his failure burned in his gut. "But Gramps," Luffy pressed, "the worst part is that Sakazuki got promoted to Fleet Admiral right after. He killed you and Sengoku while your backs were turned. And he ordered buster calls on places like Dawn Island, Alabasta, and Dressrosa. He took everything from us." A storm brewed in Garp's eyes, the shame of his own failures mixing with fury at the thought of Sakazuki's actions. "I will kill him myself," he vowed, anger simmering beneath the surface. "Gramps, wait," Luffy cried. "We can change this. I know how." Garp's expression turned cautious. "How?" Luffy took a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Well, Sakazuki is still a vice admiral, right? From what I remember, he was the second choice for the position of admiral." Garp's brows knit together in realization. "Oh no, you don't mean." "Exactly," Luffy affirmed. "If we can prevent him from getting promoted, it will change so many things." Garp shook his head, the prospect weighing heavily on him. "I'm not going to accept that promotion, brat. You can't make me do this. Gramps, this is the only way. If that bastard isn't made admiral, it will shake up everything." Luffy insisted, determination fueling his voice. Garp mulled over Luffy's words, and after a tense moment, he sighed heavily. "All right, Luffy, but you owe me big time for this." A smile lit up Luffy's face. "Deal. Tell you what, I'll bring you an apprentice you'll be proud to teach." Garp nodded, albeit still skeptical about how all of this could play out. "But Luffy, you said you possess the power of 3 devil fruits. Is that true?" With enthusiasm bubbling over, Luffy confirmed, "Yes. I have my gum fruit." He stretched out his arm, demonstrating its elasticity. "And with my new powers." He raised his hand, channeling the Guro no Mi. Crackling lightning enveloped his palm, the sheer power radiating from him. Garp's eyes widened in astonishment. What? A Logia, and a powerful one at that? Yep, Luffy grinned, relishing the surprise. He then picked up 3 small pebbles and threw them toward a nearby tree. And for my third fruit. As the pebbles shot through the air, Luffy used the Moa Moa no Mi. They grew larger and faster upon impact, obliterating the tree into splinters. Garp now stood wide-eyed, his mouth agape. That power? Don't tell me. Yes, Luffy beamed, his excitement contagious. It's Bundy World's fruit, the Moa Moa no Mi. Oh, and I have all 3 types of hockey, too. Garp's eyes were as wide as dinner plates, disbelief etched across his features. You're telling me that my grandson is not just a pirate, but a freakin' powerhouse. Garp stood in front of Luffy, a mixture of anger and pride in his eyes as he processed the implications of the deal they had struck. He was still miffed at the thought of taking a promotion to admiral, but deep down, he knew it was the best way to thwart Sakazuki's rise to power. Okay, Luffy, he said, a sinister smile creeping onto his face, since we are changing the future, I have a deal for you. Luffy felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. What kind of deal? Since I have to take the position of admiral, Garp began, you and I will fight here, no holding back. It's been ages since I had a proper fight. If you win, I'll train you for 6 months. But if you lose, you will enlist in the Navy. Luffy's eyes widened in shock. Are you serious, Gramps? I could kill you. Garp raised an eyebrow, unyielding. A snot-nosed brat like you. Kill me. I might be old, but I'm still as powerful as ever. Do you accept, or are you a coward? Hearing the word, coward, ignited something in Luffy. Okay, Gramps, you're on. Excellent, Garp said with a grin. Don't hold back, you brat. In an instant, Garp rushed forward, fists covered in hockey. Luffy braced himself, blocking the ferocious blow. He felt the strength behind it. This was no training fight. The intensity of their exchange surged as both combatants unleashed their full prowess. The battle raged for 3 hours, transforming the landscape into a chaotic battleground. Dust and debris filled the air, and the once peaceful surroundings became a testament to their ferocity, both warriors bruised and bloodied. This is a real fight. Garp shouted, eyes sparkling with excitement. I haven't felt alive like this in years. Thanks, Gramps. I must say, for an old man, you still got it. Luffy replied with a grin, his spirits high despite the exhaustion. With newfound determination, Luffy tapped into his gear forth. He felt the power surging through him, a familiar thrill at the edge of victory. Let's finish this. Garp nodded, excitement radiating from him. All right, get ready. This is my ultimate attack, Galaxy Impact. He jumped into the air, channeling all his strength. Seeing Garp's immense power rising, Luffy knew he had to respond with his most powerful technique as well. Okay, Gramps, take this. Gum Gum Thunder Elephant Gun, times 50. As both attacks collided in a grand explosion of energy, a massive shockwave erupted, sending debris flying and cracking the ground beneath them. Dust plumed around them as the aftermath of the clash settled, and Luffy and Garp both fell to the ground, breathing heavily. As the dust began to clear, Luffy smiled weakly. Well, Gramps, looks like it's a tie. Garp chuckled, a wide grin on his face despite the pain. Looks like it. You've grown strong, Luffy. I'm proud of you. Luffy's expression softened, the bond of their connection strengthened through the fierce battle. It felt good to compete against the man who had shaped him into the person he was today. Thanks, Gramps. I'm ready for anything now. Just you wait, the world won't see what's coming. Garp clapped Luffy on the back, a gesture filled with affection. Then let's get started on changing the future. We have a lot of work to do. As the dust settled around the wasteland that had once been a verdant field, Luffy and Garp surveyed the remnants of their fierce battle with a mix of shock and satisfaction. I think we overdid it, Gramps, Luffy chuckled awkwardly, wiping the sweat from his brow. Garp let out a heavy sigh, scratching the back of his head. Yeah, we certainly did. But that is what real training is about. Now, what will you do now, Luffy? I'll go and recruit Zoro first if I can find him, Luffy replied with determination. Then I'll get Nami. Oh, that reminds me, Gramps, do you know a former Marine by the name of Belmere? Garp raised an eyebrow at the mention of her name. Yes, I do. She was one of my personal students, along with Smoker and Hina. She could have made a fine officer, but then she found 2 children on some island and left the Navy to raise them. I tried to get the Navy to grant her a pension, but it was refused on the grounds that she deserted. Why do you ask? Did something happen to her? Luffy's heart dropped as he prepared to share the grim news. Well, she is my navigator's mother, and she's dead. Killed by Arlong the shark when she tried to protect them from him. Garp's expression darkened, his fury palpable. What? That is not possible. She's in Kokoyashi village. That's Nezumi's territory. The reports he sends back say that Arlong is in the area but not near civilians. Luffy shook his head, urgency in his voice. No, Gramps. His base is in Kokoyashi village. He has enslaved the people there. He killed Belmere, and her daughter Nami is forced to draw sea maps for him. Oh, and Nezumi. He's in Arlong's pocket. Garp's fury was evident as he processed the information. I will kill that fishman. And as for Nezumi, if this is true, by the time I'm done with him, he will wish for death. Luffy called out to Garp, a grin plastered on his face. Hey, Gramps, come down. I have a plan already. Garp looked down, intrigued. Okay, let's hear it. But it better be a good plan if you want to stop me from going to Kokoyashi village and turning Arlong into fish paste. Luffy smiled confidently. Well, here's the plan. First, you teach me the Rokushiki techniques. In that time, you'll inform the marine bases that if a bounty hunter named Roronoa Zoro turns up, they should detain him for a while. As soon as I've mastered Geppo, I'll go and bring Arlong and Nezumi to you. Fine, Garp nodded, but then added, but first, let's get something to eat. All this fighting has made me hungry. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Luffy laughed. I need to talk to Makino anyway. She can help me get in contact with Shanks. Garp raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. What? How does she have a Yonko's number? Oh, come on, Gramps. You haven't figured it out. Luffy teased, leaning back with a playful smirk. Why do you think Shanks hung around for 2 months when he was last here? Garp's eyes widened in realization as Luffy's words clicked into place. Wait, you mean to tell me that Shanks and Makino? Luffy nodded, a grin spreading across his face. Yes, they are. Garp's cheeks flushed slightly as he processed the revelation, chuckling in disbelief. I can't believe it. That scoundrel. He's got a thing for her, huh? Well, they seem close, Luffy said with a shrug. So I bet Makino can help me reach out to him. As Garp and Luffy walked back to the village, Garp's curiosity surged. Luffy, by the way, what happened to Ace in your time? You mentioned he was executed and that Whitebeard died as well. Oh right, I almost forgot, Luffy replied, his expression growing somber. Ace became the 2nd Division commander under Whitebeard. He went after Blackbeard. Blackbeard. Garp looked puzzled. Yeah, Luffy continued, his real name is Marshall D. Teach. He was part of Whitebeard's crew, and he killed one of his own to obtain the Yami Yami no Mi. Then he captured Ace to become a warlord and stole Whitebeard's devil fruit. Garp's expression darkened, concern evident in his eyes. That's disturbing information, Luffy. So why do you need Shanks? Luffy's eyes sparkled with determination. Well, I'm going to gather Robin, Chopper, Brook, and Frankie early, along with 4 new recruits as well. We're all going to start here in 2 years. Good plan, Luffy. But tell me, who are the new additions? Garp asked, genuinely intrigued. Luffy smiled widely. First, there's an Oni named Yamato, Kaido's daughter. Then there's a girl named Poison Pink Reiju, better known as Vinsmoke Reiju, and then there's Pedro, the former captain of the Nox Pirates. And lastly, I want to recruit Prince Loki from Elbaf. Garp's eyes widened in shock. Okay, Luffy, you are 100% crazy. You plan to recruit the daughter of that monster, a member of the Vinsmoke family, the former captain of the Nox Pirates, and Loki, the Prince of Elbaf. Trust me, Gramps, Luffy exclaimed enthusiastically. As for Loki, I can shrink him with my Moa Moa powers if necessary. But this is just the beginning. I plan to recruit even more people. Do you even hear yourself? Garp chuckled incredulously. These are some of the most formidable individuals in the world. Are you really ready for that? Luffy nodded confidently. Absolutely. I've learned from the best. With your training and my determination, we'll make it work. Besides, each of them have their own dreams and aspirations. We'll help each other grow. Garp's heart swelled with a mix of pride and apprehension. All right, I won't stand in your way. But you'll need to be mindful. Each of them has their own history and baggage. It won't be easy to bring them all together. I know, Gramps, Luffy replied, the resolve in his voice unwavering. But I believe in their potential. And I believe in ours. As Luffy and Garp entered the party bar, Luffy shouted with enthusiasm, "Hey, Makino! Bring us some food." Makino, who was in the back, quickly responded, "Coming." When she reached the bar and saw them, her eyes widened in shock. Both of them were bloodied, and their clothes were torn. She glanced at Luffy and asked, "What happened to you two? And, Luffy, why do you seem older?" "I'll tell you, Makino," Luffy replied with a grin. "But bring us some food first." Once Makino brought them food, Luffy explained everything about how he was brought back, his battles, and possessing 3 devil fruits. Makino was in shock, struggling to wrap her mind around the incredible story. Then Luffy asked, "Hey, Makino, mind giving me Shanks's number? I have a favor to ask him." Makino blushed, a nervous look crossing her face. "Shanks's number? Why would I have it?" Garp chuckled. "Oh, come on, Makino. Why do you think Shanks stayed around here for 2 months? Makino's face turned as red as a tomato, but she relented. "Okay, but this stays between us, got it? Or no more free food?" Both Luffy and Garp nodded eagerly. Makino brought out her Den Den Mushi and dialed the number. Luffy held the speaker wistfully, eagerly awaiting the connection. When the call connected, the familiar voice of Ben Beckman came through. "Hello, you've reached the red-haired pirates. Who is this?" "Ben, it's me, Luffy," he replied with excitement. "Luffy, how did you get this number?" Ben asked, clearly surprised. "Makino gave it to me. I need to talk to Shanks." "Is he there?" Luffy replied. "Yes, but he's sleeping," Ben responded. "Please, just call him. It's important," Luffy insisted, his voice portraying urgency. Ben sighed, and after a brief pause, another voice could be heard. It was Shanks, sounding slightly groggy. "Who is it? Talk quick, I'm hungover." Luffy couldn't help but grin. "Hey, Tomato Head, how are you?" Shanks's voice perked up with recognition. "Who is this?" "It's me, Luffy," Luffy said, enjoying the banter. "Luffy, it's you. What is it?" "I'll explain, but get over here as fast as you can." "This is an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" Shanks asked, concern creeping into his tone. "Please, Shanks, trust me. You won't believe me if I tell you now," Luffy urged, knowing it was best to discuss things face to face. Shanks sighed. "Okay, fine, I'll be there in 6 to 7 months. It better be important, Luffy." "It is. Trust me," Luffy assured him, a mix of excitement and relief coursing through him. As the call ended, Makino looked at Luffy with a mix of pride and concern. "Are you sure you can handle this, Luffy?" "Of course," Luffy declared, his confidence unwavering. "With Shanks and the rest of the crew helping, we'll turn everything around." With the plan now set in motion, Garp turned to Luffy with a determined look. "All right, you brat, let's begin your training. I'll stay here for 6 months to train you in the Rokushiki techniques, but from that point on, you're on your own." Luffy nodded, excitement coursing through him. "Okay, I understand, Gramps." Garp then pulled out his personal Den Den Mushi and dialed Sengoku. After a moment, the familiar voice of the former fleet admiral answered, "Garp, what do you want?" A lump formed in Garp's throat as he prepared to deliver the news. "Sengoku, I have decided to take the promotion to admiral." Sengoku's response came swiftly, his tone almost celebratory. "Excellent, Garp, you've finally come to your senses." "But," Garp interrupted, "I'll be taking 6 months off first." There was a pause on the other end, and Sengoku's voice turned serious. "What? Okay, since you've finally decided to accept the promotion, so be it. But you must be here in 6 months." "Got it," Garp replied, the tension easing slightly. After hanging up, he turned back to Luffy. "All right, brat, get ready for 6 months of hell. It's going to be intense." Luffy grinned widely, his heart racing with anticipation. "Can't wait, Gramps." With their training set to commence, both Luffy and Garp felt a surge of energy, determination to meet the challenges ahead. Luffy was ready to dive into the rigorous regimen, eager to master the Rokushiki techniques while shaping his own destiny. The path to gathering his crew and changing the future had officially begun, and with Garp as his mentor, Luffy felt more confident than ever. 3 months had passed, and Luffy and Garp were finally finished training for the day, both feeling the weight of their rigorous sessions. Just as they settled into a moment of shared exhaustion, Garp's Den Den Mushi began to ring. He answered, "Hello, who is this?" A stern voice on the other end replied, "Vice Admiral, this is Lieutenant Haruto from Marine Base 17. The bounty hunter you requested is here, along with his partner." Garp raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "His partner? Who is it?" "Yes, a girl with blue hair," the lieutenant responded. Luffy furrowed his brow, puzzled by this unexpected information. But in his mind, he heard Nika laughing. "Oh, I didn't tell you. I made some adjustments to this timeline. The girl with Zoro is his childhood friend, Kuina. She didn't die, just as Nami's mother didn't die, but Arlong has her hostage to keep Nami obedient." Luffy's eyes widened, a mix of confusion and excitement bubbling within him. He turned to Garp. "Gramps, could it be that things have changed in this timeline?" Garp looked at him, a hint of concern in his voice. "What do you mean?" Luffy hesitated, considering how to explain. He chose his words carefully. "Well, the girl the lieutenant describes sounds like Zoro's friend, Kuina, but in my timeline, she died a long time ago." Garp's expression shifted as realizations clicked into place. "So that means this isn't the same timeline. Belmere could still be alive." "Exactly." Luffy nodded fervently. "I need to go see for myself. Meet me at Kokoyashi Island in 2 days." Garp nodded firmly, understanding the urgency of the situation. "All right, Luffy, just be careful." Without wasting another moment, Luffy picked up Zoro's swords, the Sandai Kidetsu and Shisui, along with Nami's Kleem attacked. He concentrated for a moment, harnessing the power of Geppo to launch himself into the air. However, moments later, Luffy returned, looking thoroughly confused. "Gramps, which way is Marine Base 17? Garp, caught off guard and frustrated, fell to the ground. "You idiot, why didn't you learn basic navigation? It's that way." He angrily pointed in the direction of the marine base. Luffy grinned, unfazed by Garp's outburst. "Thanks, Gramps, I'll be back soon." Without another word, he took off again, leaping into the air with a renewed sense of purpose. His heart raced as he raced toward Marine Base 17. Hope surged within him. If Kuina were alive, it would change everything. The prospect of rescuing not just his friends but possibly the loved ones of his future crew filled him with determination, igniting the spirit of adventure that had always driven him forward. As Luffy rushed toward Marine Base 17, he spoke to Nika in his mind, eager to learn more about the changes in this timeline. "Okay, Nika, what kind of changes have you made that I don't know about?" Nika chuckled, his playful tone evident. "No spoilers, Luffy, but let's just say this won't be the same timeline you are used to." "Yes, most things will be the same, but different." Luffy sighed in exasperation. "Man, you are an ass sometimes." "Hey, I'm the sun god, known for being a trickster and a prankster," Nika replied, laughter in his voice. "What did you expect?" Finally, as Luffy arrived at the marine base, he pushed through the doors with excitement. As he stepped inside, his gaze landed on them. Zoro was standing there, and Luffy could hardly believe his eyes. His first mate was alive, but next to Zoro was a girl who resembled Tashigi. To Luffy's shock, she held Zoro's Wado Ikimonji, though Zoro himself had only 2 katanas at his side. "What is going on here?" Luffy thought, his heart racing as he walked toward them. Zoro turned his head, catching sight of Luffy. "So, you're the one that wants to talk to us," he stated, his voice steady. Luffy nodded eagerly. "Yeah, I am. I have an offer for you too. Let's get out of here and find some place to eat." Both Zoro and the girl exchanged skeptical glances but eventually agreed. As they followed Luffy, Kuina leaned in and whispered to Zoro, "Hey, can we trust this guy?" Zoro whispered back, "I don't know, but if he tries something, we'll slice him." Just then, Luffy turned around, catching their conversation. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," he assured them with a bright smile. Kuina and Zoro exchanged shocked looks as Luffy grinned, the exuberance of their reunion fueling his excitement. "Man, this is going to be awesome," he exclaimed. They left the confines of the marine base, Luffy leading the way, full of his usual zest for life. As they walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a significant turning point, not just for him, but for Zoro, Kuina, and the crew they would build together. The energy of possibilities surged through Luffy as he envisioned the adventures that lay ahead, ready to forge new bonds and challenge their destinies. Luffy, Zoro, and Kuina made their way outside the bustling town, seeking an open field for their upcoming battle. As they neared the designated spot, Luffy's mind raced with thoughts about how to approach this fight. "I've got to go easy on them, otherwise, I could accidentally kill them if I'm not careful." Once they reached the open field, Zoro drew his two blades, a determined glint in his eye. Kuina followed suit, drawing Wado Ikimonji, ready to face off against Luffy. To their surprise, they found Luffy standing calmly with his arms crossed, his straw hat casting a shadow over his eyes. "What are you doing? Fight!" Zoro called out, confusion etched on his face. Luffy simply smiled mischievously and picked up a small pebble from the ground. Both Zoro and Kuina exchanged puzzled glances. What is he up to? They thought. In an instant, Luffy threw the pebble toward them, and with a flick of his wrist, he activated the Moa Moa no Mi. The speed of the pebble increased by 20 times, while he covered it with his armament haki. Zoro and Kuina watched, eyes widening, as the pebble zipped past them and struck a tree, piercing not only that tree but 10 others with effortless ease. Their eyes were as wide as dinner plates as they stared in shock at the destruction. "What was that?" Zoro exclaimed, utterly flabbergasted. Luffy, feeling confident, unleashed a wave of Conqueror's haki. The powerful wave surged outward, forcing both Zoro and Kuina to their knees under its weight. Kuina, breathless and weak, managed to ask, "How do you know that?" Surprised but pleased, Luffy replied, "Oh, you know about haki. That's great." "Yes," Kuina breathed, "my dad told me about it, but I never managed to learn it." Luffy smiled, his confidence radiating. "Well, I have all 3 types of haki, and you won't believe this, I have 3 devil fruits in me as well." Zoro and Kuina fell silent, astonished by the revelations. Luffy's abilities seemed almost beyond comprehension. After a moment, Luffy broke the silence. "So, a deal's a deal. Join me, and you'll get stronger. Come on, it'll be fun." Kuina glanced at Zoro, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. But Zoro, ever the one to chase his dreams, nodded firmly. "Fine, I accept." "Me too," Kuina agreed, a mix of excitement and determination in her voice. Luffy's grin widened, joy bubbling within him. "Awesome. Together, we're going to have the greatest adventures." As Luffy, Zoro, and Kuina sailed on a small boat, the sun shimmered on the horizon, casting a warm glow across the ocean. Luffy turned to his new crew members, curiosity piqued. "So, how did you two become bounty hunters?" Kuina spoke first, her expression turning thoughtful. "Well, my dad wanted me to get married, but I couldn't get married to someone I didn't know. Plus, I'd have to stop being a swordswoman, so I ran away. I ended up finding Zoro a year ago. Turns out, he went for a walk and got lost," Kuina teased, glancing at Zoro with a hint of amusement. Luffy raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Where did you guys meet?" With a hint of embarrassment, Kuina replied, "Well, we met on an island over 400 kilometers away from the dojo." Luffy tilted his head, puzzled. "So you ran away, and Zoro went for a walk and ended up on another island over 400 kilometers away. That's wild," Zoro grumbled, feeling defensive. "Hey, it's not like that. I went west." "You're pointing east," Kuina interrupted, a smirk forming on her lips. Luffy couldn't hold back his laughter at Zoro's expense, the frustration on Zoro's face only making it funnier. Zoro crossed his arms, trying to ignore it, though embarrassment flickered across his features. Once Luffy regained his composure, he turned to Zoro. "Hey, Zoro, may I see your swords?" Zoro looked puzzled, but he nodded and said, "Sure, they're cheap blades, but they do the trick." He handed Luffy his swords, a hint of pride in his stance. Luffy took the swords in his hands, admiring their craftsmanship. But to Zoro and Kuina's horror, he suddenly tossed them into the sea. What are you doing? Zoro shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. Before Zoro could react further, Luffy reached into his pocket and used his Moa Moa no Mi powers. He altered the swords, reverting the Sandai Kidetsu and Shisui back to their normal size, bringing them back with a flourish. Here, these are 2 premium katanas. The red one is called Sandai Kidetsu, and the black one is Shisui. Kuina's eyes widened in shock. Did you say Sandai Kidetsu and Shisui? How did you get them? Luffy grinned, clearly enjoying the surprise he had caused. I'll tell you later. Zoro picked up his new blades, his expression shifting to one of awe. The quality was overwhelming. He couldn't believe the craftsmanship before him. They're incredible. Luffy then added, oh, and I almost forgot. In 3 months, red-haired Shanks is coming here. He's the second most powerful swordsman in the world. He could show you some tricks. Zoro's eyes lit up with excitement. Shanks, really? I've heard stories about him. If I can meet him and learn from him, that would be amazing. Yeah, Kuina agreed, enthusiasm in her voice. This journey is turning out to be even more exciting than I had imagined. Kuina turned to Luffy, excitement evident in her voice. So we're really going to meet the Yonko, red-haired Shanks. Luffy beamed back at them. Yes, you see my straw hat. He gave it to me the last time he was here. As they sailed on, Luffy continued, before he gets here, we have something to do. First, we need to go to my home island, Dawn Island, where my grandpa will train us for 3 months in hockey. Zoro crossed his arms, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. What do we have to do first? And who is your grandpa, anyway? Luffy smiled mischievously. Well, my name is Monkey D. Luffy, figure it out. Zoro looked puzzled for a moment, but Kuina's expression turned nervous. Did you say Monkey D is your grandpa? Yes, my grandpa is Garp the Fist. Luffy stated proudly. Both Zoro and Kuina were left in shock. The legendary Vice Admiral Garp, known as Garp the Fist, was to be their trainer for hockey. It was almost too incredible to believe. Gasping at the revelation, Kuina asked, so, Vice Admiral Garp will train us in hockey? Luffy nodded eagerly. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Still trying to absorb the news, Kuina then inquired, and what are we doing first? Luffy looked at his companions, excitement bubbling within him. Well, first, we'll go to Kokoyashi village to get our navigator. She's there, and we're going to take down Arlong the Saw. Upon hearing this, both Zoro and Kuina's eyes went wide, as if they'd just seen a ghost. Are you crazy? Zoro exclaimed, clearly shocked by how casually Luffy was approaching such a powerful foe. Luffy shrugged nonchalantly. Nah, I bet you I can take him down in 2 seconds. 2 seconds? No way, Kuina said incredulously, unable to believe such confidence. Luffy's grin widened, his determination unwavering. Just watch me. 2 days later, in the depths of Arlong Park, a 16-year-old Nami sat in her small room, poring over her sea charts. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions as she meticulously finished drawing new maps for Arlong. The tension in her heart never seemed to ease, but she steeled herself with determination. Just 10 million belly more, Belmere, she thought to herself, envisioning a brighter future. And then I can start gathering 100 million belly to buy back Kokoyashi village from that monster. Arlong had woven a web of control around her, striking a cruel deal to keep her bound to him. Her beloved mother, Belmere, was kept as a prisoner, a bargaining chip to ensure Nami's obedience. Arlong had demanded 50 million belly for Belmere's release and an additional 100 million belly to liberate Kokoyashi village from his grasp. Despite the burdens crushing her spirit, Nami's resolve never wavered. She was forced to draw sea maps for Arlong, her skill exploited for his greed. Yet, each stroke of her pen carried with it the hope of freedom, a flicker of light in the oppressive darkness that surrounded her. Nami glanced outside her window, watching the horizon. Somewhere beyond the vast sea, there had to be a way out, a chance to break free from Arlong's tyranny and protect those she loved. She clung to that hope fiercely, never allowing despair to take hold. Unknown to her, a change was underway. Luffy, Zoro, and Kuina were sailing toward Kokoyashi village, their hearts set on breaking the chains that held her. Unbeknownst to Nami, her life was about to change, and the threads of fate were weaving her into an adventure far greater than she imagined. a journey filled with new allies, unexpected challenges, and the promise of freedom. As Nami continued her work, she quietly whispered a vow to herself, the depth of her determination echoing within her heart. "I'll save you, Belmere. No matter what it takes, I'll set us free." Her resolve was unwavering, and soon, she would find the strength she needed in the most unexpected of places. As Nami prepared to leave her room, a deafening explosion shook the foundations of Arlong Park. Her heart pounded in her chest as she rushed toward the source of the chaos. When she arrived, her eyes widened in shock at the scene before her. Arlong's men lay scattered across the courtyard, burned and motionless as if struck by a powerful lightning strike. The only fishmen pirates still standing were Arlong, Hachi, Shu, and Karubi. Nami's gaze shifted toward the gate, where she spotted three strangers: a young man with green hair wielding two katanas, a young girl with a single katana, and a young man sporting a straw hat. With a mix of apprehension and curiosity, Nami approached the scene. "What happened here?" she called out. Arlong spun around, glaring at her with suspicion. "Nami, is this your doing, you traitorous wench?" Fear clenched Nami's heart as she tried to protest. "What? No, I don't even know these people. And what happened here?" Karubi stepped forward, his voice dripping with accusation. "Liar, it's obvious you hired them. How else would they know where our base is? You're the only one allowed to leave the island freely." Panic surged through Nami. "It wasn't me, I would never." But Karubi wasn't listening. Rage overtook him as he rushed at Nami, screaming, "Shut up, you lying human. You die now." Nami's heart sank, fear overwhelming her as she braced for the inevitable. But suddenly, a figure appeared in front of her, halting Karubi's charge. It was the young man in the straw hat. With a cold, determined tone, the young man spoke. "Hey, it's not nice to threaten a defenseless girl." Unafraid, Karubi continued his charge, shouting, "Die, human scum." But the straw hat-wearing stranger moved with lightning speed. "Shigen," he shouted, extending a single finger with precision. Before anyone could react, his attack pierced Karubi's chest and heart, dropping him instantly. The courtyard fell silent, save for the crackling tension in the air. Nami stood frozen, struggling to comprehend the swift turn of events. This stranger, this young man, had saved her. And with that one move, everything had changed. Watching Karubi fall, a realization washed over Nami. These people were here not to harm her, but to help. Hope flickered within her heart once more as she took in her saviors. The promise of freedom, of a future without Arlong's shadow, no longer felt like a distant fantasy but a tangible reality. Arlong, witnessing Karubi's lifeless body on the ground, erupted with fury. "You will pay for that," he screamed, eyes blazing with rage as he directed his anger at Luffy. Luffy remained calm, the brim of his straw hat casting a shadow over his eyes. "No, Arlong, you will pay. Tell me something. How much are you holding this island ransom?" Arlong's shock was palpable. "How do you know that?" His gaze flickered to the frightened Nami standing beside Luffy. "So it was you." Luffy shook his head, his voice steady. "No, she didn't hire us, Arlong. I figured that an outcast from the Sun Pirates would stoop so low." "Tell me, how was getting your ass kicked by Jinbei?" Fury boiled within Arlong at the mention of Jinbei. "How dare you, you human trash. Do you know who I am?" Luffy couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing around them. "Yeah, the former member of the Sun Pirates who was so weak that if Fisher Tiger didn't take pity on you, you'd be a good deck cleaner." Arlong's anger reached a boiling point. "You human trash, you will pay for that insult. Take this." He rushed at Luffy, blind with rage. 1. Luffy counted calmly, watching the approaching fish man. Arlong closed the distance. "I'll wipe that smug smile off your face." 2. As Arlong got close, Luffy delivered. 3. "Take this. Thunder pistol." He charged up a small bolt of lightning at his fingertip and shot it toward Arlong. The electric surge struck true, electrifying Arlong and sending him crashing to the ground, unconscious. Luffy turned to Kuina, his expression cheerful. "See, Kuina, I told you it would take 3 seconds. I win the bet, so you owe me lunch." Shu, witnessing the defeat of his captain, charged at Luffy in a desperate attempt to retaliate. But Luffy, unfazed, fired another lightning bolt, knocking Shu out as well. With the immediate threat quelled, Nami stood frozen for a moment, emotions swirling within her. Tears filled her eyes as she rushed toward Luffy and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you," she sobbed, her heart swelling with relief. Luffy returned the embrace, feeling warmth spread through him at her gratitude. "You don't have to thank me." Nami hugged Luffy tightly, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "The nightmare is finally over." "It's over." Luffy spoke in a calm voice. "Hey, it's okay. But tell me what happened here." Taking a moment to compose herself, Nami began recounting her harrowing story. Arlong arrived 6 years ago, and he demanded extortion money from us, 100,000 belly for an adult and 50,000 belly for a child. Belmere didn't have much, she only managed to gather 100,000 belly. But she decided to pay for me and my sister, Nojiko. She took a deep breath, emotion tightening her voice as she continued. Arlong was about to kill her when he noticed a chart that had fallen out of Belmere's pocket. Once he found out I was the one who drew it, he made a deal. As long as I made sea charts for him, Belmere would live. But if I wanted him to release her, it would cost me 50 million belly. And if I wanted him to leave my village, that would be another 100 million belly. Nami's words hung heavy in the air, the gravity of her situation sinking in. Then, with a hint of curiosity, she asked, "By the way, who are you?" Luffy smiled. "Well, the green-haired one is Zoro, the girl is Kuina, and my name is Monkey D." "Luffy, nice to meet you," Nami replied, trying to regain her composure amidst the flood of emotions. But Luffy sensed the weight of the moment. He knew that when he met Nami in his original timeline, she had harbored a deep hatred for pirates. "Let's hope I don't mess this up," he thought for a moment before deciding he should be honest. "Well, this is kind of awkward," Luffy said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "What is awkward?" Nami asked, a puzzled expression crossing her face. Luffy sighed, preparing himself for the truth. "Well, me and my comrades are pirates. We came here looking for members to join our crew, and I think I've found one." Nami's expression shifted dramatically, her heart dropping at the word, pirates. Panic coursed through her mind. "Oh no, I just got my freedom from Arlong, and now this guy wants me to join his crew." Wait, you're a pirate," Nami exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief and concern. "I just escaped the clutches of one monster, why would I want to join another?" Luffy quickly raised his hands, trying to ease her worries. No, it's not like that. I'm not the same as Arlong. I hate what he did to you and your village. We're not here to extort anyone. I just want to explore the seas and make friends along the way." Zoro and Kuina remained silent, watching the exchange unfold as Nami wrestled with her emotions. She had spent so long battling against pirates, and the idea of joining one felt overwhelmingly wrong. "I don't know, Luffy," Nami said hesitantly, her mind still reeling. "How can I trust you? You're a pirate." Luffy looked her straight in the eyes, a fierce determination shining through. "I understand your distrust, but I promise you that I will never treat you the way Arlong did. You can be free with us." Nami felt a flicker of hope ignite in her heart amidst her turmoil. Could it be possible? Could she really trust this young pirate standing before her? As the waves crashed against the shore outside, Nami realized that this was more than an opportunity to join a crew, it was a chance for a fresh start. She felt the weight of her past bearing down on her, but perhaps with Luffy and his friends, she could truly begin again. "Okay," Nami said slowly, taking a deep breath. "Let's see where this journey takes us." Hachi, although terrified of the turn of events, began to slowly retreat toward the sea. But Luffy's voice rang out, stopping him in his tracks. "Where do you think you're going?" Luffy's tone shifted as he addressed Hachi directly. "What would Rayleigh and Shaki think of you if they saw what you're doing here?" Hachi's shoulders slumped, filled with shame from Luffy's words. But to his surprise, it was Nami who intervened. "Wait, Luffy, don't kill him. Hachi was the only one who was nice to me. He even told me he was bringing extra food for my mother, who is locked up in a cell." Luffy tilted his head, understanding the bond that Nami had formed, even under dire circumstances. "Don't worry, I won't kill him. I can see he's a good person." He turned to Hachi, his expression earnest. "But I have to ask you, Hachi, now that your former crew is gone, how about you join my crew instead?" Hachi considered this opportunity, his heart racing at the thought. I will only join if Nami is okay with that, he replied, his voice hesitant. Luffy looked at Nami, giving her the choice. What do you think, Nami? With determination in her eyes, Nami nodded. Okay, I will have no problem with that. All right, Hachi exclaimed, a spark of hope igniting within him. Then I will join you. Great. Now, Hachi, go get Nami's mother from the cell, Luffy commanded. Hachi nodded enthusiastically, grateful for this second chance as he hurried off to retrieve Belmere. The moment felt monumental. Not only was he escaping Arlong's grasp, but he was also joining a crew under a captain who had shown kindness and courage. Meanwhile, Luffy was whispering to himself. This is going excellently. I've already got 3 strong swordsmen in my crew, and now we have a skilled navigator. Hachi made his way to the prison cell area of Arlong Park and carefully brought out Belmere. Though weak, her spirit remained unbroken. As soon as Nami saw her mother, she rushed forward and hugged her tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. Belmere looked around at the chaos surrounding them, taking in the scene of Arlong and his men lying unconscious, as if struck by the force of a mighty storm. Nami, what happened here? Nami, her voice filled with gratitude and excitement, pointed to Luffy. This is Luffy. He beat Arlong in 3 seconds. He's crazy strong. Luffy smiled warmly at Belmere, feeling a sense of camaraderie and pride. Yes, I did, but I'll explain everything later. First, let's get something to eat and wait for my Gramps to get here. Belmere, recovering from the initial shock, wanted to ask about his grandfather. But as she observed Luffy's features, recognition dawned on her. So, your grandpa is that crazy old man? She asked with a knowing look. Luffy nodded, a grin spreading across his face. Yep, that's him. Then Belmere said something that took Luffy by surprise. You sure look like your father, that's for sure. Luffy's eyes widened in shock. You know my dad? He asked, his voice filled with curiosity and disbelief. Belmere nodded, a gentle smile tugging at her lips. Of course I do. As Luffy, Nami, Hachi, who was carrying Belmere, and Zoro and Kuina made their way back to the village, the air felt lighter with the promise of freedom. Suddenly, from behind them, Arlong staggered to his feet, battered but defiant. You human trash, you will pay for this. And Hachi, you traitor, he shouted, his voice dripping with venom. Luffy turned around, a calm resolve in his eyes. Okay, Arlong, this is your final threat. Without a moment's hesitation, Luffy extended his arm. Gum gum pistol, he yelled, launching a powerful punch that slammed Arlong directly into the walls of Arlong Park. The dust settled around the broken wreckage, but Luffy wasn't finished. So, 150 million belly to be rid of you. He mused, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. I have a better idea. He formed a small ball of lightning on his finger, the air crackling with electricity. As he concentrated, the sphere began to grow, pulsing with dangerous energy. 1 volt, 10 volts, 100 volts, 1000 volts. Luffy's voice echoed, the ball now resembling a swirling bolt of lightning. Arlong emerged from the rubble, his eyes filled with rage and desperation. But Luffy stood his ground, undeterred. 100 million volts, 130 million volts, 150 million volts. The energy continued to build, eagerly awaiting release. Luffy locked eyes with Arlong, his resolve firm. Here, Arlong, here is your 150 million. With a final shout, Thunder Spear. Luffy released the massive bolt, and with the power of the Moa Moa Mi, he increased the Thunder Spear's speed by 5 times. Arlong watched, helpless as the colossal lightning bolt surged toward him. It struck with an intense force, vaporizing him instantly and obliterating the structure of Arlong Park. The monstrous threat that had haunted the village for years was gone in an electrifying moment, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Luffy turned back to his crew and new friends, a determined smile on his face. Come on, let's go. With renewed hope and the freedom of Kokoyashi village secured, they walked on, leaving behind the ruins of Arlong Park. As they moved forward, the path ahead was filled with a fresh sense of possibility. As the group approached the familiar site of Belmere's and Nami's home, an air of peace began to settle around them. Belmere, curious and grateful, turned to Luffy with questions brimming in her eyes. Okay, how did you do it? Those attacks. Your arms stretched, you shot thunderbolts, and don't think I haven't noticed how you increased the speed of that thunderbolt when it flew toward Arlong. Luffy grinned, always eager to share his story. Oh, that, well, I've eaten 3 devil fruits. The Gum Gum no Mi, the Guro Guro no Mi, and the Moa Moa no Mi. Upon hearing this, Hachi, Belmere, and Nami all reacted with shock, their eyes widening with disbelief. Belmere's voice was a mixture of astonishment and concern. What? That's impossible. How are you still alive? And let me guess, that lunatic Garp taught you Haki and the Rokushiki techniques. Luffy nodded genuinely, a twinkle of mischief in his expression. Yup, he sure did. But unlike him, I'm going to be a pirate. Belmere, taken aback by Luffy's nonchalant response, was surprised. You're going to be a pirate? Yes, Luffy declared with unfaltering determination. I want to explore the seas, make friends, and create memories. My dream is to become the Pirate King, and I want people like Nami to join me on this journey. Belmere, watching the energy and sincerity radiating from Luffy, sensed that his intentions were pure. Despite her initial misgivings, she started to see the possibilities this young captain offered not only for Nami but for the others as well. Just make sure you watch out for each other, Belmere finally said, her voice filled with both wisdom and warmth. Nami looked at Luffy, her heart brimming with gratitude and a burgeoning sense of belonging. Thank you, Luffy, for everything. Zoro and Kuina, standing nearby, exchanged glances, knowing that this was just the beginning of their thrilling voyage with Luffy. Hachi, newly committed to a path of redemption, nodded in agreement. As Luffy, Nami, Hachi, and the others approached Belmere's house, they were greeted by the sight of a beautiful tangerine farm, vibrant and full of life. In the distance, Nami's sister, Nojiko, was engaged in conversation with 2 people, Genzo and a familiar figure, Garp. Luffy spotted his grandfather and called out, "Hey, Gramps. Over here." Garp turned, his gruff demeanor softening as he spotted his grandson, but he was equally pleased to see Belmere alive and well. Luffy, so, you killed Arlong, he remarked, pride and exasperation mingling in his voice. Luffy, slightly embarrassed, scratched the back of his head. Oops, yeah, I did. I kind of got carried away. Garp chuckled, shaking his head. Oh well, no problem. But since you failed to bring him alive, no bounty for you. Turning his attention to Belmere, who was being supported by Hachi, Garp spoke with a seriousness that commanded attention. Bel, we have a lot to discuss. Belmere nodded, her expression revealing the weight of the conversation that lay ahead. I think you're right, Vice Admiral. Garp's brow furrowed slightly at the title. No, not anymore. Now, I'm an admiral. He paused, letting the weight of his new title hang in the air before continuing. And I have a proposition for you. Since you were one of my best students, how about you come with me? Later in the day, the sun hung low as everyone gathered at Belmere's house, sharing the warmth of newfound freedom. Belmere had returned from the doctor, checking up on her recovery. She was assured she would regain her strength in no time, leaving her feeling revitalized. As they settled in, Garp decided it was time to share his proposal with Belmere. Okay, listen up. Since I'm taking the position of admiral, I want you, Belmere, to be my adjutant. This would mean you're reinstated in the Navy and granted the position of captain. What do you say? Belmere was stunned by the offer. What? How can you do that? I was dishonorably discharged. Garp waved her concern away with a chuckle. So what? I can make some calls to Sengoku, and that's that. Don't forget, Bel, you were my top student. Your observation Haki earned you the title of the top Navy sharpshooter. And I won't take no for an answer. Belmere scoffed, knowing Garp well enough to understand that if he set his mind on something, there was no stopping him. Fine, she relented with a smile. However, Belmere had a request of her own. But I want my older daughter, Nojiko, to come as well. Nojiko, surprised by the suggestion, protested lightly. What, me? Are you sure? Who's going to look after our tangerine orchard? Belmere reassured her daughter. Don't worry, Nojiko. I can ask Genzo and some villagers to look after it. She then turned to Luffy, fixing him with a firm gaze. And you, if Nami is going with you to be a pirate, I want you to promise me that no harm will come to her. Luffy met her gaze with a confident smile. No problem. Belmere nodded, acknowledging his promise. You'd better be right, kid. Or I'll hunt you down myself. The only reason Arlong caught me was because I got cocky. I won't be that naive again. Understanding her resolve, Luffy nodded, a newfound respect for Belmere brewing in his heart. He understood the depth of her concern and the fierceness with which she loved her daughters. I promise to keep her safe. We'll have a lot of adventures ahead. With the major issues settled, Nami turned to Luffy, curiosity piqued. So, what's the plan now, Luffy? Luffy grinned, that familiar spark of adventure shining in his eyes. Well, it's simple. We train for 3 months on Dawn Island, then we set sail for the New World to recruit some people and gather allies. Zoro, ever intrigued by the promise of skill, chimed in. Oh, that's right. You mentioned that red-haired Shanks is coming here. You said he could help us. Nami perked up at the mention of the name. Red-haired Shanks. Why does that sound so familiar? Belmere's face took on a more serious shade as she spoke with a nervous voice. The Yonko, red-haired Shanks. Luffy nodded, his demeanor filled with excitement. Yes, he's the one I got this hat from. Belmere, carefully weighing the implications, asked, where do you plan to go after training, Luffy? Luffy knew his answer would surprise them, but he spoke with confidence nonetheless. Well, I want to recruit some people. First, there's Nico Robin. Then, a pirate named Brook who's in the Florian Triangle. I'd also like to recruit Pedro, the former captain of the Nox Pirates, and a girl named Yamato. She's in Wano, and her dad is Kaido, king of beasts. I plan to fight him, and if I win, I'll forge an alliance with him. I know what people say about him, but he isn't all that bad. Taking a breath, he continued with almost nonchalant audacity, after that, we go to Elbaf to try and recruit Prince Loki. Simple, really. Oh, and I also plan to pick up some others on the way. So, officially, we'll set sail in 2 years. Belmere, Hachi, Nami, Zoro, and Kuina all stared at Luffy with eyes wide as dinner plates. The boldness of his plan was overwhelming. You're crazy. They all yelled simultaneously, each voice echoing the same disbelief. Luffy laughed heartily, not at all deterred by their reaction. Maybe I am, but you have to be a little crazy to aim for something as big as the Pirate King title, right? Luffy suddenly remembered something important. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Nami's Klima Tact. With a focused use of his Moa Moa powers, he returned it to full size and presented it to her. Here, Nami. This is for you. Nami took the staff, intrigued by its unusual design. What is this? She asked. This is a very special staff, Luffy explained. It lets you create thunderbolts, make hurricanes, basically control the weather. Nami's eyes shone with excitement as she took hold of the staff. She began to analyze it closely, pressing a switch out of curiosity. Suddenly, a cloud with a baseball cap emerged. Luffy's eyes widened in realization. Oh no, I forgot about Zeus. He thought anxiously. Zeus, finally freed, floated around happily. Nami, there you are. It's been some time since you summoned me. Nami stared at the cloud, puzzled. Who are you? Zeus replied cheerfully. Why, I'm your pet, Zeus. Don't you know me? You set me free from Big Mom, and in exchange for those delicious clouds, I agreed to be your pet. But tell me, when did you cut your hair? And why do you seem younger? Luffy internally groaned. Oh no, that stupid cloud is going to spill everything. Meanwhile, Nika was laughing heartily in Luffy's mind. Oh man, this just keeps getting better and better. Trying to defuse the situation, Luffy quickly released a small wave of Conqueror's Haki, causing Zeus to silence himself. Belmere, however, wasn't easily distracted. With a firm resolve, she addressed Luffy. Okay, Luffy, what are you hiding? I knew something was off from the moment I laid my eyes on you. First, from what I gather, you should be around 15, but you look 19 or 20. Second, you look like someone who has gone through many battles. Zoro joined in, his voice steady and sincere. Luffy, if you want us to trust you, then you have to be honest. Kuina nodded in agreement, standing by Zoro. Yes, Luffy, we were honest with you. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Luffy bowed his head, ashamed of his secrecy yet knowing that it was time to reveal the truth. Okay, I'll tell you. But this is going to be a hard-to-believe story. Taking a deep breath, Luffy began to recount his extraordinary journey, from his original timeline to his meeting with Nika, his 3 devil fruits, and his mission to change the past. With each word, the weight of his secret began to lift, revealing his determination to create a future where his friends and loved ones could thrive. Throughout his tale, his friends listened intently, their expressions shifting from disbelief to understanding as they realized the depth of Luffy's commitment and the magnitude of his goals. When he finished, there was a moment of silence, broken only by the sound of the wind rustling through the tangerine trees. Luffy waited, apprehension clutching his heart, hoping for acceptance. Belmere was the first to speak. "Luffy, that's one heck of a journey you've been on. I can see why you've taken on such a big responsibility." As the evening settled in, Zoro, Nami, Kuina, and Hachi stood somewhat skeptical, still processing the revelations Luffy had shared. Sensing their hesitation, Luffy decided to reveal something that might further convince them: 2 wanted posters he had recently pulled from his pocket. He held them up for all to see. The posters contained images of an older Nami and Zoro, bold headlines outlining their bounties. "Here are our last bounty posters," Luffy said with a grin, watching as their expressions shifted to shock. Cat Burglar Nami, wanted dead or alive, 770 million belly. Roronoa Zoro, wanted dead or alive, 3,500 million belly. The air went still as Nami and Zoro stared at their posters, their faces blank with disbelief. "What happened to your eye?" Kuina asked Zoro, glancing at his poster curiously. "And why do you have my sword in your mouth?" Nojiko, having moved closer, shared in their astonishment. "What was your bounty, Luffy?" Luffy chuckled as he replied, "Well, my last bounty was 5,500 million belly." The revelation hung in the air, leaving everyone, except for Garp, speechless. Their eyes widened in disbelief, processing the magnitude of what they had just heard. "Listen, everybody," Luffy said, determination flooding his words. "This is not the same timeline. We have a chance to change everything for the better. So, are you with me or not?" Nami's eyes sparkled with newfound hope. "I'm in." Zoro, always ready for a challenge, nodded in agreement. "Me too." Hachi and Kuina exchanged glances before nodding as well, their determination solidifying. "So are we," they said in unison. With the weight of their pledges hanging in the air, Luffy couldn't help but smile brightly. "Excellent. Tomorrow we start the training." Later that night, Garp had already left for Marine HQ, called away on urgent business. Belmere had assured everyone that it was no problem, and after a long day filled with revelations and planning, the group settled down for the night. Everyone was asleep except for Luffy, who found himself on the roof, gazing at the stars and talking to Nika. "So, they already know," Nika commented, his voice light and teasing. Luffy nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, but I feel this is for the best." Nika continued, his tone shifting, "So you are changing your plans now?" "A little," Luffy admitted. "I'm still going to get Brook, Yamato, Pedro, and Loki, but I'm going to recruit Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, and Frankie just like in the original timeline." "Oh, I forgot to tell you," Nika interjected. "Reiju in this timeline is with Sanji at the Baratie. They escaped their father together." Luffy's face lit up at the news. "That's good. I'll just recruit her as well in 2 years." Suddenly, a voice broke through Luffy's thoughts. "Luffy." Turning around, he saw Nami approaching. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, noting her troubled expression. She nodded, taking a seat beside him. "Luffy, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied, curious. "What happened to Belmere in your timeline? And how did I die?" Nami's voice was filled with uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, Luffy sighed as he recounted the painful memory. "Belmere was shot by Arlong, and you were killed by an admiral named Sakazuki on Raftel." Nami's expression went pale. "So I was killed by an admiral?" Luffy nodded solemnly. "Yeah, but this time, we will get stronger together. I promise." A smile crept onto Nami's face, warmth flooding through her at Luffy's reassurance. To Luffy's surprise, she leaned in closer and kissed him passionately on the lips. Stunned, Luffy returned the kiss, the warmth of the moment enveloping him. Here they were, reminiscent of the adventures they would share, connecting in a way neither had expected. As their kiss broke, Nami whispered, "That's for helping me. And I think I like you." With that, she stood and returned to her room, leaving Luffy in stunned silence. Still processing what had just happened, Nika's voice broke through Luffy's thoughts. "You Casanova, I always knew you two had chemistry." Luffy's face flushed red as he stammered, "Oh, shut the fuck up." 2 days later, Luffy, Zoro, Kuina, Hachi, and Nami arrived at Dawn Island. After grabbing a quick bite at Makino's party bar, they were eager to begin their training. For the next 3 months, they trained rigorously. Zoro, Kuina, and Hachi practiced diligently with their swords, each honing their skills. Nami, with help from Zeus, focused on mastering her Kleem attack, learning to harness its full potential. The most beneficial training came from Luffy, who taught them the basics of armament and observation haki. Nami and Hachi displayed a natural aptitude for observation, while Zoro and Kuina concentrated more on developing armament haki, pushing their limits under Luffy's guidance. During this time, Luffy and Nami's relationship blossomed further. Nami found comfort and love in Luffy's company, and they grew closer with each passing training session. One day, while they were hard at work, Hachi sensed a ship approaching. Turning to Luffy, he reported, "There's a ship coming." Luffy grinned, a spark of excitement lighting up his eyes. That must be Shanks. Sure enough, as they entered Makino's party bar, they found Shanks casually flirting with her. "Hey, tomato head," Luffy shouted, catching everyone's attention. Shanks turned around, shock washing over his face as he saw Luffy, now almost grown up, sporting a scar across his chest. "Luffy, what the hell happened to you? You've grown." His eyes narrowed as he took in the scar. "Who gave you that?" Luffy smiled broadly, "That's a tale for another day. I've got a lot to share." 2 hours later, after Luffy had finished recounting his incredible journey, Shanks, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, and Yasop stood with their eyes wide, processing everything they had just heard. "So, you awakened the Nika fruit?" Shanks asked incredulously. Luffy nodded, feeling proud. "Uh-huh, and I have a small favor to ask you." Luffy then tells Shanks what he is planning. Shanks raised an eyebrow, wariness creeping into his voice. "Luffy, are you completely out of your mind?" "What did I say? Did I say something wrong?" Luffy inquired, genuinely puzzled. "You bet," Shanks retorted incredulously. "You want me to take you first to the Florian Triangle, the home of Gecko Moria, to recruit a singing skeleton. Then you want to go to recruit Pedro. And if that isn't enough, you want me to bring you to Kaido so you can recruit his daughter. As if that's not the cherry on the cake, you're asking to go to Elbaf to recruit that mad giant I personally chained up when he failed to kill King Harold." Luffy replied earnestly, "Hey, Loki is innocent in my timeline. We found out that he was framed by the world government. They were responsible for the plot to kill Loki's father. And while we're on that subject," he leaned closer to Shanks and whispered something in his ear. Shanks's expression grew serious. "You know?" he asked. Luffy nodded, reassuring him. "And I don't care. You're still my friend, Shanks." Sighing, Shanks ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated but slightly amused. "Man, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. But okay, I will take you and your crew to those islands." Luffy beamed with excitement, grateful for the support and friendship that continued to fuel his dreams. With Shanks agreeing to help, their journey was solidifying into something greater than he had hoped. They were ready to face the challenges ahead, united as friends and allies, and filled with the promise of adventure. 1 month later, Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Hachi and Kuina found themselves on the Grand Line aboard Shanks's ship. They had just passed Water 7 and were now making their way to the enigmatic Florian Triangle, eager to recruit Brook early in their adventure. Luffy was particularly excited to see the goofy skeleton again. Memories surfaced of Brook's jovial personality and the invaluable asset he became to the crew in Luffy's original timeline. However, questions nagged at him. Had Moria taken Brook's shadow in this timeline? Given that Zoro now possessed Ryuma's legendary blade, Shisui, Luffy couldn't help but wonder how things might unfold differently. His mind buzzed with plans. Bringing Brook into the fold was just the beginning. Moria, the warlord, still occupied his thoughts. If Luffy could bring him as a gift to Wano, it might serve as leverage in forging an alliance with Kaido. In this altered timeline, forming an alliance with the King of Beasts could provide powerful advantages. Luffy's strategic thinking, a byproduct of consuming the Moa Moa no Mi, had expanded his capabilities. Not only could he increase the speed and volume of objects at will, but it had also enhanced his intelligence. It was a subtle yet significant addition, sharpening his focus and allowing him to calculate decisions with increased clarity. The side effect was minor compared to the advantages it provided. The events of his previous life also shaped him, revealing the world's darker elements. He knew that survival sometimes required difficult decisions, moments demanding shrewdness and a calculated approach to achieve greater goals. As the ship cut through the mysterious waters, Luffy felt a familiar thrill coursing through him. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but with his trusted friends beside him and Shanks's support, Luffy felt ready to tackle whatever lay ahead. United under the Straw Hat and emboldened by his far-reaching vision, he was confident they would reshape destinies, one alliance at a time. With the misty embrace of the Florian Triangle looming ever closer, their ship sailed toward the future. Much lay in wait. Unforeseen challenges, new allies, and the boundless adventure of a world needing change. Luffy's heart brimmed with hope and determination as he watched the horizon, knowing they were scripting legends anew. As they approached the entrance to the Florian Triangle, Shanks made his way over to Luffy with a casual yet concerned demeanor. "Luffy," he started, "we'll be approaching the entrance to the Florian Triangle soon. Are you sure you want to go in with your crew alone, without backup?" Luffy grinned, exuding confidence. "Yeah, I'm sure, Shanks. And thanks for training Zoro, Hachi, and Kuina. Also, give thanks to Building Snake for teaching Nami how to navigate the Grand Line." Shanks chuckled. "No problem. Snake told me your girlfriend is a natural." Luffy blushed slightly at the comment. It was still a new feeling for him, having a girlfriend, but it was a good one. Shanks continued with a reminiscent tone, "As for those three, it was rather amusing when Zoro thought he could challenge me. Yeah, he's serious about becoming the best. I guess you showed him how far he still has to go," Luffy replied. Shanks nodded. "Indeed, but he and the octopus fish man are good students." "But the girl, she's really something else." "Kuina?" Luffy asked, intrigued. "Yeah," Shanks confirmed. "Unlike those two, she's taking my lessons very seriously. She trains non-stop." Luffy smiled, pride swelling within him. "Thanks anyway, Shanks. And do we still have a deal?" Shanks grinned. "Yeah, we do. As soon as you get your first bounty, I'll announce to the world that we're allies." As the Straw Hat pirates settled into the small boat provided by Shanks, they ventured into the eerie waters of the Florian Triangle. The mist rolled in thick waves around them, reducing visibility and adding an air of mystery to their journey. Nami, her voice tinged with nervousness, spoke up. "Luffy, do we really have to do this? I've heard that ghosts haunt these waters." Luffy grinned mischievously. He didn't tell them that Brook was a skeleton. "Don't worry, Nami, it'll be fine." Zoro, curious about their potential new crew member, said, "Hey, Luffy, so this Brook guy, you said he's a swordsman too?" "Yes, he's a very good one," Luffy replied, smiling. "He's tall, wears a suit with a top hat, and his sword doubles as his cane. Plus, he's a talented musician. He's been in the Florian Triangle for over 50 years. Hachi, Kuina, Nami, and Zoro exchanged puzzled looks. "Over 50 years? How old is he then?" Kuina asked incredulously. Luffy chuckled. "He's about 90. Oh, and something I forgot to mention. He's a skeleton and is obsessed with women's panties." The revelation hit like a ton of bricks, leaving the crew speechless for a moment. Nami quickly grabbed Luffy, shaking him with exaggerated disbelief. "Luffy, are you crazy? You want to recruit the dead?" Luffy laughed heartily at Nami's outburst. No, it's not like that. He ate the Yomi Yomi no Mi. It's a devil fruit that enhances the user's soul, allowing them to live a second time after their first death." Still unsatisfied, Nami shouted at Luffy, her frustration getting the better of her. "Luffy, no. We are not doing this." Luffy, with his typical carefree demeanor, simply responded, "You look cute when you're angry." That comment caught Nami off guard, and she found herself blushing in spite of her anger, the warmth of Luffy's words causing her to calm down slightly. Just as they continued through the dense mist of the Florian Triangle, the sound of a haunting melody drifted through the air, an unfamiliar voice singing the words, "Yo ho ho, yo ho ho." Luffy's eyes lit up with recognition and excitement. "That's him, Brook," he exclaimed, anticipation growing as they neared the source of the singing. As they turned around, a massive ship loomed before them, cutting through the waters of the Florian Triangle with an air of mystery. The ship was a striking sight, a grand vessel adorned with vibrant colors and intricate carvings that reflected its adventurous spirit. The sails flapped gently in the breeze, emblazoned with the emblem of the Rumbar Pirates, a bull skull. It was a ship once filled with life and energy, with a history of music and adventure woven into its very planks. Luffy felt a rush of excitement as he spotted the ship. There it is. That's Brook's ship. Zoro, Kuina, and Hachi exchanged glances, sharing their cautious sentiments, but Nami shivered at the sight of the eerie vessel approaching. As it drew near, they could see a figure standing on the deck, sipping tea nonchalantly. "Hey, Brook," Luffy shouted, not bothering to contain his enthusiasm. Brook, caught off guard, turned to see Luffy waving. "You know me," he exclaimed. "Of course. Wait there," Luffy called back, determination in his voice. They quickly climbed aboard the ship, with Luffy carrying Nami because she was too scared and screaming, "Luffy, let me go." "I don't want to go." Luffy just smiled and replied, "Oh, come on, Nami. Don't be a baby. I'll buy you something nice if you behave." That did the trick. Almost instantly, Nami rushed out of Luffy's arms, determined to show her courage. She was the first to climb the leader's steps onto the ship's deck, yelling back, "Come on, slowpoke." Zoro, watching her enthusiasm, thought to himself how greedy she was, but he couldn't help but admire her spirit. As they reached the top, they laid eyes on Brook, who had approached them with a cheery demeanor. "Ah," Brook declared with a wide grin. "What brings you aboard the Rumbar Pirates ship?" Luffy introduced himself without hesitation. "Hey, my name is Monkey D. Luffy, I'm forming a pirate crew, and I want you to join us." "Okay," Brook replied enthusiastically, a smile spreading across his bony face. Luffy grinned at his crew, all wide-eyed at how effortlessly he had recruited the skeleton musician. "Nice, Brook. Welcome aboard. Let me introduce you to the crew. The green-haired one is Zoro, the octopus fish man is Hachi, the girl pointing her katana is Kuina, and the other girl hiding behind Kuina is Nami." Brook greeted Zoro and Hachi warmly like old friends, but as he turned to face Nami and Kuina, a mischievous glint sparkled in his eye. Luffy, sensing what Brook was about to say, began to chuckle. "May I see your panties?" Brook asked innocently, leaning toward the two girls, his tone obliviously flirtatious. The moment the words left his skeletal mouth, both Nami and Kuina reacted instinctively. Without hesitation, they punched Brook in the head with their fists, sending him crashing to the ground with two large, cartoonish lumps swelling on his skull. "What was that for?" Brook cried, bewildered, as he lay sprawled on the deck. Nami and Kuina stood with steaming fists, glaring at him, while Zoro and Hachi looked on wide-eyed, and Luffy rolled on the deck laughing, unable to contain his amusement at Brook's misfortune. "Welcome to the crew, Brook," Luffy managed to say between chuckles, knowing that this was just the beginning of a delightful chaos that would define their adventures together. Once Luffy regained his composure, he looked at Brook, remembering the last conversation they had about Gecko Moria. "Hey, Brook," he asked casually, "have you encountered Gecko Moria?" Brook nodded, his expression serious as he recounted his experiences. "Yes, I have. His underlings, Absalom and Perona, are hunting for me. Something about bringing a samurai back to life, but I overheard that the samurai's sword is missing." Luffy smiled, his mind racing with possibilities. "Excellent. Brook still has his shadow, and if we can capture those two, they might lead us straight to Moria." Just as Luffy was about to share his plan, Nami suddenly screamed, "Luffy! A ghost!" Turning toward the commotion, Luffy saw a cartoonish ghost floating nearby, chanting, "Negative, negative. Hey, which one grabbed my ass?" Kuina yelled, her face scrunched up in annoyance. Luffy quickly focused, utilizing his observation haki. He sensed both Absalom and Perona nearby, a grin forming on his lips. "Everyone, find cover." Before they could ask what Luffy had in mind, he raised his arm and shouted, "El Thor!" Lightning bolts cascaded from the sky, striking Absalom directly and frying him. He fell to the ground, unconscious, but miraculously alive. Suddenly, a young woman appeared, a short girl with big, round black eyes and asymmetrical eyelashes. Her waist-length pink hair was tied into 2 pigtails, adorned with black and white flower hairpins. A red crown with a black cross perched atop her head, complemented by red lipstick and thick eyeliner. She wore a white long-sleeved shirt with black heart shapes that left her belly exposed. "Absalom!" she yelled, rushing toward the unconscious figure. "What is going on?" Seeing her chance, Luffy smirked. "Got you." With a swift movement, he summoned lightning and bound it around Corona, emitting a crackling energy. "Let me go." "How is this possible? I'm not in my body," Corona exclaimed, panic evident in her tone. Luffy chuckled, confidence radiating as he explained, "These electric bounds are infused with haki. The more you struggle, the stronger the shock." Corona's eyes widened in fear. "No, this isn't fair. Let me go." "Okay," Luffy said, pretending to consider it. "But first, lead us to Moria. I have some business with him." As Absalom awoke, his eyes flitted around until they landed on Corona, who was tied up beside him. Panic washed over him as he exclaimed, "Corona! What happened?" Still visibly irritated, Corona snapped back, "These nasty people captured us. They forced me to tell them where Thriller Bark is." Before Absalom could respond, controversy swirled around them. Kuina stood nearby, her expression one of fierce anger as she held her blade at Absalom's neck. "Not a word out of you, pervert, or you'll lose those hands. Or something else," she threatened, pointing her sword dangerously close to his crotch. Absalom's face turned pale at the prospect of her threat. What? Just then, Luffy approached the bound duo, his presence reflecting confidence. Corona, spotting him, began to yell, "You nasty man. Moria will kill you." Luffy chuckled at her indignation. "Oh, I don't think so. I have plans, and he's a good bargaining chip," he replied smugly. Absalom, scoffing at the notion, said, "You think you can beat Moria? Don't make me laugh. He's a warlord, and you're a nobody." Luffy smiled, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Oh, is that a challenge? Tell you what. Once I beat Moria, you two can come along with me. I'm sure Kaido will have a blast seeing Moria, plus 2 of his officers." The tension in the air intensified as both Absalom and Corona quaked with fear at the mention of Kaido. "You're working for him," Corona squeaked, panic littering her voice. Luffy shrugged, looking completely unfazed. "No, but I plan to make an alliance with him, as well as red-haired Shanks. And your idiot captain is a gift I plan to give him." As Luffy spoke, he glanced toward Kuina and saw her controlling the situation with confidence. "And as for you," he said, leaning closer to Absalom. "One more word out of you, and I will let Kuina have her fun with you." Absalom gulped, fear overtaking him as he nodded quickly, not daring to provoke them further. Corona glanced at Luffy, assessing the situation. She realized that this had become a much more complicated encounter than she had anticipated. With their safety compromised and their captors full of surprises, Luffy and his crew prepared for the next steps. He could sense that everything was aligning perfectly. He would not only capture 2 officers of the warlord Moria but could turn their predicament into an advantage. As laughter and anticipation filled the air, Luffy turned toward Zoro, Nami, Hachi, and Kuina. "All right, let's figure out our next steps. With Brook in the mix, it's time to make some serious moves." As they approached Thriller Bark, the eerie atmosphere hung thick in the air, shadows dancing along the ship's deck. Corona and Absalom, still bound, began to shout for help. "Moria-sama, help us. These pirates want to capture you and bring you to Kaido." Inside, Moria caught snippets of their desperate cries. He raised an eyebrow at the mention of Kaido, his interest piqued by the thought. Suddenly, he noticed something approaching rapidly. It was Luffy, using Geppo to glide into the room with ease. "Moria!" Luffy yelled, his voice cutting through the tension. "Gum Gum Thunder Pistol." Before Moria could react, Luffy's electrified fist shot towards him, striking him with full power and sending him flying through the wall, debris scattering around him. Dazed, Moria struggled to get up, glaring at Luffy. "Who are you, you Straw Hat punk? Do you know who I am?" Luffy chuckled, eyeing the fallen warlord with a mix of amusement and confidence. "Yeah, a fat, Lazy captain who's far past his prime. But you can be useful to me. Fury surged within Moria. You will pay for this. He shouted, gearing up for a counterattack. But before he could react further, Luffy activated Gear Second. In a flash, he appeared behind Moria and yelled, "Gum Gum Thunder Gun." The punch, infused with hockey, struck Moria squarely in the face, electrifying him and knocking him out cold. Luffy then picked up the unconscious warlord, a smirk creeping onto his face as he headed back to his small ship. When he returned, both Corona and Absalom started to panic. This kid had defeated Moria like it was nothing, and both of them knew what that meant for their future. In a desperate attempt to save her life, Corona pleaded, "Please, Straw Hat Sama. Spare a cute girl like me. I'm too young and cute to die. Please let me join you." Luffy heard the desperation in her voice and paused, considering her request. Her abilities could be useful, he thought with a slight smirk, and she is kind of cute too. Traitor, you would switch sides just like that? Absalom yelled, anger boiling over. Luffy liked this idea. He turned to Corona. Okay, but we will have a vote. Zoro and Kuina exchanged glances. I'm okay with it, Zoro said, crossing his arms. Me too, Kuina agreed, crossing her blade. Nami added, fine, but, she leaned in closer to Luffy and whispered, I saw how you looked at her. Hachi considered the situation before chiming in, all right, then. From the back, Brook piped up, may I see her, but he was cut off by Nami, who retorted, just tell us, yes or no. Okay, Brook answered, raising his bony hands in surrender. Finally, Luffy turned to Corona and declared, very well then. Welcome to the Straw Hat Pirates. Relief washed over Corona, a smile breaking through her frightened demeanor. The bonds of their unusual crew were beginning to take shape, and together they stood ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, not as mere individuals but as a family united in adventure. As the Straw Hat Pirates sail away from the Florian Triangle, their crew dynamics begin to shift with the addition of Brook and Corona, while also managing the unique situation with Gecko Moria confined to a small chest using Luffy's Moa Moa powers. Leaving Absalom behind on a small island, the crew heads toward Sabayati Archipelago with renewed determination, their ship transformed and spacious enough to accommodate everyone comfortably. However, tensions arise as the journey progresses. Nami, feeling a pang of jealousy over Corona's proximity to Luffy, starts to question her own feelings and motivations. Corona, initially excited to be part of Luffy's crew, but now she is basically flirting with Luffy. This naturally brings them closer together, leading Nami to notice little moments of affection that stir her jealousy. As they navigate the seas, Nami's internal conflict grows. She values her relationship with Luffy and their shared dreams, but Corona's charming personality and open admiration for Luffy spark feelings she hadn't acknowledged before. This situation allows for growth and deeper exploration of Nami's character, as she grapples with her emotions and the fear of losing her bond with Luffy. 2 days into their journey towards Sabayati, the tension between Nami and Corona had escalated to an amusing yet disruptive rivalry over Luffy's affections. Their incessant bickering and attempts to outdo each other had become a source of annoyance for the rest of the crew. Seeing the chaos unfold, Luffy recognized that as captain, it was time to intervene and restore harmony. Hey, Nami, Corona, could you come here for a second? Luffy called out, his voice commanding but casual. The two girls rushed over, shoving each other playfully in their haste, reflecting their competitive spirits. Look, you two need to work this out, Luffy declared, putting on his serious captain's face. So, as your captain, I'm forced to do this. He dramatically pulled out a pair of sea stone cuffs and quickly snapped them onto Corona's and Nami's wrists, binding them together. Both girls protested immediately. Luffy-sama, what is the meaning of this? Corona exclaimed, looking stunned. Yeah, Luffy, get these cuffs off us. This isn't funny, Nami added, fuming as she glared at Luffy. Luffy waved off their complaints with a grin. Until you two learn how to work together, these will stay on. It's all about teamwork. Corona, feeling the weight of the cuffs and her devil fruit powers suppressed, pouted. But I can't use my powers like this. Exactly, Luffy said with a mischievous smile. Now, you two have 2 hours to go in the boat's cabin and figure things out. Seriously, I have no idea why you're fighting like little kids. Listening from the sidelines, Zoro, Kuina, Brook, and Hachi were all taken aback by Luffy's unconventional approach. They exchanged glances, and soon enough, they all burst into laughter at the absurdity of the situation. Hachi leaned over to Brook and whispered, "Should we tell him?" "No," Brook chuckled, his teeth shining like a spotlight. "But I must say, our captain is a lucky man, having two gorgeous girls fighting over him." As Nami and Perona reluctantly shuffled into the cabin, still tethered together, they grumbled but couldn't help but share a glance. The absurdity of being bound together by their captain's whims was undeniably ridiculous. This forced interaction might just lead them to resolve their differences, whether over Luffy or by realizing they both valued their friendship and adventurous spirit more than a rivalry. In the cabin, they would have no choice but to communicate openly, perhaps finding common ground that would not only ease the tension but also strengthen the bonds of their growing crew. In the cabin, the tension between Nami and Perona was palpable as they finally found themselves in a space free from the interruptions of the crew. With the sea stone cuffs binding them together, they had no choice but to confront their feelings about Luffy head-on. Nami, crossing her arms defiantly, stated, "Luffy is mine, and you have no right to try and take him away from me." Perona, not backing down, retorted, "You're just a jealous little girl. I really like Luffy, and it's clear he has feelings for me too." Nami couldn't help but smirk, adding fuel to the fire, "Oh, at least we kissed." Perona's eyes widened in shock. "You did what?" Regaining her composure, Perona declared, "Look, I can see only one way to settle this." Nami raised an eyebrow, curious yet skeptical. "Okay, go on." With a determined expression, Perona suggested, "The only way is that we share Luffy." Nami's face turned bright red at the outrageous suggestion. "What, are you crazy?" Perona shrugged off the objection. "Why not? It could be fun. Plus, I think you're kind of cute too," she added with a cheeky grin. Now as red as a tomato, Nami found herself at a loss for words. The idea was shocking and uncomfortable yet oddly intriguing. "This is strange for me," she finally muttered, her mind racing as she considered the implications. "Ah, come on, don't be a pushover," Perona prodded, her playful demeanor challenging Nami to let go of her reservations. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, Nami contemplated the situation. Sharing Luffy was a mind-bending thought, but the prospect of having a solid connection with both him and Perona was tempting. Maybe, just maybe, there could be a way to navigate this newfound dynamic without losing their friendship or respect. After a moment of silence, Nami replied, "Okay, let's talk about this more. But no promises, and we need to set some ground rules." With a mix of relief and excitement, Perona grinned, "Great. Let's figure out how we can make this work." 2 hours later, Luffy decided to check in on Nami and Perona, curious about how their conversation had unfolded. As he entered the cabin, he was greeted by the sight of the two girls smiling and chatting casually. "See, you two can get along," he said with a grin, genuinely pleased. But then, his expression shifted to confusion as he asked, "Why were you two fighting in the first place?" The question made both Nami and Perona comically fall over with disbelief. Nika, hearing this, couldn't help but yell, "Are you really this thick in the head, Luffy?" Recovering from their surprise, Nami took a deep breath and explained, "Well, we both have feelings for you, and we decided to share you." Luffy was taken aback for a moment, processing the information. "Wait, so, does that mean I have two girlfriends now?" He mused, his usual carefree demeanor sparkling with newfound excitement. After seeing that Luffy was embracing the concept, Nami and Perona looked at each other and then back at him. "It's true," Perona exclaimed with a smile. In that moment, Luffy removed the sea stone cuffs that had bound the girls together. The two of them jumped up, hugging him tightly in an impulsive, joyous reaction. Nami leaned in first and kissed him passionately. Perona followed suit, planting her own soft kiss on Luffy's lips. "All right, let's go tell the crew," Luffy exclaimed, his exuberance infectious. They made their way to the deck, where the rest of the crew awaited. Zoro leaned casually against the railing, giving a typical indifferent shrug. Kuina and Hachi, however, were both beet red, processing the news with varying degrees of shock and embarrassment. Meanwhile, Brook, never one to miss a chance for comedic flair, bowed dramatically before Luffy, declaring, "I bow to the king of all men." I bow to the king of all men. His antics elicited a hearty laugh from the crew, lightening the mood. With laughter and celebration in the air, the Straw Hat pirates shared their news, reveling in the humor and camaraderie that defined their adventure. Their newly formed trio's dynamic added an exciting twist to the crew's already vibrant relationships. After a few hours of festivities, they finally reached Sabayati Archipelago. The crew was buzzing with anticipation as they headed to Shaki's bar, where Shanks awaited them. As the crew made their way to Shaki's bar, Luffy was practically bouncing with excitement at the prospect of seeing Shanks again. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as they walked through the bustling Sabayati Archipelago. On their way, both Brook and Hachi donned cloaks and hoods as a precaution, blending in with the crowd. Perona turned to Luffy, her expression serious. "Luffy, are we really going to visit that monster, Kaido?" Nami sighed and added, "Unfortunately, Perona, encountering Kaido isn't the tip of the iceberg." Both Perona and Brook exchanged worried glances, their shock evident. But Luffy, unable to contain his enthusiasm, grinned and replied, "Yeah, the alliance with Kaido isn't the only thing I plan to accomplish." With a bounce in his step, Luffy continued, "First, we go to Zou to recruit Pedro, the former captain of the Nox Pirates. Then we're heading to Wano to deal with Kaido and recruit his daughter, Yamato. You'll like her. Then we go to Elbaf." Perona, now sweating slightly, hesitated. "And what do you plan to do in Elbaf?" she asked, her voice tinged with trepidation. "I plan to recruit Prince Loki and ally myself with the giants," Luffy announced with conviction. Both Perona and Brook turned pale at the thought of the formidable giants and the challenges that lay ahead. Seeing the anxious expressions on her friends' faces, Nami wrapped her arms around Perona and comforted her. "Welcome to the crazy party, girlfriend," she said with a warm smile, planting a gentle kiss on Perona's cheek. The gesture brought a blush to Perona's cheeks, counteracting her previous anxiety. She smiled back at Nami, grateful for the support and camaraderie as they prepared to embark on such an unpredictable journey. With Luffy leading the charge, the group entered Shaki's bar. The lively atmosphere greeted them, setting the stage for reunions and plans. Inside Shaki's bar, the atmosphere was lively, filled with light laughter and the clinking of glasses. Luffy's eyes lit up when he spotted Shanks at the bar, sharing a drink with the legendary Dark King, Rayleigh. "Hey, Luffy, I see you got the job done," Shanks called out, a broad grin on his face. "Yeah, it was easy," Luffy replied, brimming with pride. He quickly introduced Shanks to Brook and Perona. Perona stood in awe at the sight of red-haired Shanks, her admiration evident. The presence of the Yonko and his legendary status made her starstruck. As they settled in, Shanks leaned in closer to Luffy and whispered, "I told Rayleigh everything." Luffy nodded, understanding the importance of their conversation. Shanks then looked at Brook, his eyes wide in surprise. "Boy, Luffy, you weren't kidding about having a real-life skeleton. I thought I misheard you." Perona, still absorbing the scene, interjected, "How did you know Brook was a skeleton?" This mention sent a wave of panic through both Shanks and Luffy for a moment, but Rayleigh quickly jumped in. "Luffy, I think you should tell your two new additions the truth," he said calmly. Luffy sighed, realizing he had no choice but to explain. He took a deep breath and revealed how he had gone back in time with the intention of changing the course of their futures. He told Brook and Perona about their past, how Brook had been part of his crew before and how Perona had been Dracula Mahawk's servant in the previous timeline. To his surprise, both Perona and Brook seemed to take it in stride. Brook chuckled, "Well, you recruited me again, so I owe you 2 times now." Perona smiled, "So what you told us is this is a different timeline, and I'm happy to be by your side, Luffy." With the mood lightening, Luffy turned to Shanks. "Are we ready for the trip?" Shanks nodded, a serious expression returning. "Yeah, right, Rayleigh did the coding on the ship. We are ready." Standing up, Rayleigh approached Luffy, his tone shifting to one of seriousness. "I think it's time," he said, stepping into the back room. A moment later, he returned with a gleaming sword, a cutlass. "This is Roger's sword," Rayleigh presented it to Luffy with reverence. "You should have it." Luffy's eyes widened in shock. He tried to protest, but Rayleigh and Shanks were insistent. "You need to accept this," Rayleigh urged. Reluctantly, Luffy accepted the sword, feeling a mix of honor and responsibility wash over him. Zoro, a small smile forming on his face, chimed in, looks like me and Kuina will be teaching you how to use it. 5 days later, Shanks's ship finally made it to the New World, and the crew decided to bypass Fishman Island, which made Luffy curious. To his surprise, Shanks informed him that, in this timeline, Queen Otahime had not died, and King Neptune was killed. Luffy, sitting on the figurehead of Shanks's ship, admired Roger's old sword. He had started training with it and, much to the surprise of Shanks, Zoro, Kuina, Brook and Hachi, he was a natural. Not as skilled as the 5 of them, but respectable, nonetheless for a beginner. As he looked at the sword, Luffy contemplated, I wonder if I can infuse it with my thunder power or maybe my Moa powers. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed Zo, the gigantic elephant on which the home of the minks rested. Gathering his crew, Luffy announced, "Okay, let's go up there." Nami interjected, "Luffy, how do we plan on getting up there?" With a confident smile, Luffy replied, "Simple. Perona, you can leave your body and fly up. Don't worry, we'll carry it." Turning to the rest of the crew, Luffy used his Moa powers to increase his size 4 times and instructed the others to hang on. After they complied, Luffy took a deep breath and jumped, activating Geppo to propel them upward. About 40 minutes later, Luffy was carrying his crew while Perona flew nearby. However, as they neared the top, Perona realized something was wrong. "Oh no, Luffy is getting tired," she screamed, panic rising in her voice. The others looked over and saw Luffy's face turning red as he struggled to breathe heavily. To make matters worse, they noticed that he was beginning to shrink back to his regular size. Seeing the summit of Zo so close yet feeling his energy depleting, Luffy threw his crew towards the surface and, using his gum powers, wrapped his arm around them. With another arm, he grabbed hold of the massive elephant. Zoro, catching on to what was happening, exclaimed in disbelief, "Oh no, is he?" "I think he is," Nami replied, bracing for impact. Luffy yelled, "Gum slingshot," and propelled them all toward the surface of Zo. They crash-landed, causing a loud thud that echoed through the area. Luffy lay there on the ground, completely out of breath but grinning from ear to ear as he laughed at the successful landing. Moments later, Nami approached him, slightly frazzled. She had twigs and branches in her hair from the fall, and she couldn't help but scold him. With a firm grip on his collar, she shook him and yelled, "Luffy! What was that crazy landing?" Luffy just laughed, "But we made it, didn't we?" As the Straw Hat pirates settled atop Zo, taking in their surroundings, Luffy gathered everyone's attention. "Okay, listen up. It's possible that the minks know we're here, or they'll find out soon. Whatever you do, don't attack first. The minks may have isolated themselves from humans, but they know about the outside world. If we prove we're friends, they'll welcome us. Got it?" The crew nodded in agreement, clearly understanding the importance of the situation. Zoro, always the pragmatic one, spoke up, "So, Luffy, what's our best course of action?" Luffy thought for a moment, then replied, "Well, I think the best course of action is to let them come to us. We shouldn't force our way in. Instead, we can let them take us to their leaders, Inuarashi or Nekomamushi." Kuina raised an eyebrow at Luffy's statement. "What do you mean, or don't they rule together?" Luffy shook his head, clarifying, "The minks that live on Zo have divided their day between day and night, and after 12 hours, exactly at 6 o'clock, they fall asleep immediately where they stand. They do this to prevent the 2 leaders from encountering each other and fighting. This way, each leader governs their own time without conflict." The crew exchanged glances, intrigued by the unique governance among the minks. Brook, always eager to share his thoughts, chimed in, "So, we literally could run into either leader depending on the time of day." "Exactly," Luffy confirmed, his enthusiasm shining through. "So, let's stay alert, and once we meet them, we can explain why we're here. We've got allies to gather." With a plan in mind, the Straw Hats spent some time setting up a temporary camp and preparing for the possibility of mink contact. Luffy led discussions about their intended visit to Zo, emphasizing the importance of kindness and openness. Just as Luffy finished explaining their plan to his crew, he sensed the presence of 5 individuals approaching. With a confident smile, he announced, "They're coming. And remember, only defend. We want to prove we're friendly." The Straw Hat pirates nodded, readying themselves for an encounter. In a flash, a shadow leapt out from the bushes, aiming directly at Luffy. He quickly covered his arm with armament haki, effectively blocking the attack. The crew noticed that their assailant was a dog-like mink girl, adorned with a musketeer-style hat and wielding a sword. Luffy, deflecting her attack, called out calmly, "Hey, listen. We come in peace. We're not enemies." The dog mink, skeptical, retorted, "Oh really? Prove it." Before Luffy could respond, one of the other minks stepped forward and spoke with authority, "Wanda, leave this guy to me." "But Pedro," Wanda protested. "No buts, you're outmatched here," Pedro replied. Upon hearing Pedro's name, Luffy grinned, "Ah, there you are, Pedro." Pedro seemed intrigued. "You know me?" "Yes, actually. My crew and I came here to recruit you into our pirate group," Luffy announced. Pedro, skeptical, queried, "Are you serious? Do you know who I am?" Luffy nodded. "Yep, Pedro, the former captain of the Nox Pirates. Bounty 382 million berry. You sailed in search of the poneglyphs, which got you that bounty." "Oh, and I'm Luffy, by the way." Somewhat taken aback but maintaining his composure, Pedro challenged, "And why should I join a rookie like you?" Seeing that persuasion was getting him nowhere, Luffy decided to appeal to Pedro's pride as a warrior. "Tell you what, Pedro, let's have a duel. If I win, you join us. If you win, we leave Zo." Pedro pondered the offer for a moment, then agreed. "Fine, now choose your weapon." "I pick my sword." Luffy glanced at his options. While his devil fruit powers could make the duel too easy, he wanted to earn Pedro's respect. Pointing to his cutlass, "Ace," he declared, "Fine, I choose the sword as well." Noticing the sword, Pedro asked, "Where did you get that, kid?" Luffy replied with a smirk, "I'll tell you later. Let's duel." The duel began with Luffy and Pedro rushing at each other, their swords clashing as they engaged in combat. Luffy's technique was clear. He wasn't a seasoned swordsman, but thanks to his observation haki, he was able to keep up and avoid being completely overwhelmed. Kuina turned to Zoro and said, "Hey, why did Luffy choose the sword?" "I mean, sure, he's been practicing, but let's be honest, he's still a rookie with it." Zoro replied, "It's not just about winning, he wants Pedro's respect. Plus, see, he's using observation haki to even the playing field a bit." Perona added, "Well, I hope he gets this over with quickly." She glanced at the minks standing by and added with a teasing tone, "Man, these guys are so cute." As the duel continued, Luffy realized that he was likely to lose. Pedro was a more skilled and seasoned swordsman. Just then, Pedro called out, "This duel is over." He sheathed his sword and declared, "You are welcome here. It's obvious you are friends." Luffy, somewhat breathless, replied, "Looks like you win." Pedro shook his head, "No, you could have beaten me, kid, but you chose a weapon that gave you a disadvantage. For that, you've earned my respect." A smile broke across Luffy's face as he remembered something from the previous timeline about showing a sign of friendship. Without hesitation, he began to take off his clothes, leaving the other Straw Hat pirates in shock. Kuina, Nami, and Perona turned red, while Hachi, Zoro, and Brook looked puzzled. Nami yelled, "Luffy, what are you doing?" Luffy grinned widely, "Oh, this is the best way to make friends with the minks. You switch clothes with them, and just like that, it's a sign of friendship." With that, Luffy and Pedro quickly exchanged outfits, solidifying their newfound bond. Perona, inspired by the display, flew over to Wanda and suggested, "Hey, you want to change clothes too?" Wanda, intrigued, readily agreed, and they switched outfits as well. After this little demonstration of friendship, Brook noticed Wanda and two other dog minks looking at him and licking their snouts. Putting two and two together, he quickly realized what was happening. Before he knew it, Brook took off, running for his life with Wanda, who was dressed in Perona's clothes, and the two other dog minks chased after them. After the exchange of friendship and Luffy and Pedro saving Brook from becoming a dog's dinner, Luffy turned to Pedro and said, "So, you want to join us?" Pedro sighed and replied, "Well, okay, but first I want to see your full power, kid. We have a situation here." Luffy nodded, curious about what was happening. "Oh, let me guess, Jack is causing trouble." "How do you know that?" Pedro asked, surprised. Don't worry, Luffy said confidently, I can take care of him. Plus, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I plan to visit his boss, Kaido. Pedro's eyes widened in disbelief. What, you plan to visit that monster? Luffy nodded, his determination shining through. Don't worry, if everything goes according to plan, you won't have to deal with Jack anymore, and you'll be safe. Okay, Pedro agreed reluctantly. If you do that, I will join you. Deal, deal, Luffy exclaimed, a wide grin breaking across his face. Just then, a lion mink burst through the underbrush, running toward them. Pedro, there you are. We've got a situation, he panted, clearly distressed. What happened, Sicilian? Pedro asked, his demeanor shifting immediately to seriousness. Jack's back, and he brought reinforcements. He brought Queen with him. Nekomamushi is trying to fight them. Sicilian exclaimed. Pedro cursed under his breath, stupid old fool. He'll get himself killed. Luffy, not waiting for further explanation, declared, don't worry, I'll handle them. He activated Geppo and launched himself into the air, flying off towards the commotion. Watching him go, Wanda turned to Nami and Perona, awe in her eyes. Man, your captain is something else. Nami nodded, smiling. Yeah, he sure is. In the chaos of the battlefield, the intensity heightened as Nekomamushi lay injured, struggling to protect his home from the dual threats of Jack and Queen. Jack, the giant group fish man, loomed over him, his massive stature a powerful reminder of the enemy's strength. His imposing figure, adorned with spiked armor and a menacing mask, only added to the dread he inspired. Queen, with his enormous size and round figure, stood nearby, eagerly anticipating the moment he could join the fight. As Jack approached the fallen Nekomamushi, his confidence swelled. You are defeated, surrender, and I'll make your death quick. He taunted, but just then, Queen noticed something approaching from the corner of his eye. Jack, watch out. Before Jack could react, Luffy appeared, his hockey-covered fist barreling toward the giant fish man. Gum Gum Thunder Hammer, ×4. Luffy shouted, unleashing massive power in his blow. The punch connected with an astonishing force, completely shocking Jack and shattering his metallic mask in the process. Jack groaned and collapsed to the ground, rendered unconscious by the impact. Queen, wide-eyed, could only stare in disbelief as he witnessed his companion's defeat. Jack, stop fooling around, he yelled, but there was no response from the fallen fish man. As Luffy stepped forward, a striking silhouette appeared, his straw hat casting a shadow over the fallen Jack. Who the hell are you, and what did you do to poor Jack? Queen demanded, ready to spring into action. Luffy, unfazed, charged up lightning in his arm and smiled confidently. Oh, don't worry about him. He's out cold, but you should surrender, or else. The revelation made Queen bust out laughing. Surrender to you? Do you know who I am and who our boss is? Sure, you got a lucky punch on Jack, but don't get cocky, kid. Luffy's trademark grin widened as he confidently replied, oh, I know who you are and who your boss is. In fact, I plan to meet him and ask him to join me in an alliance. Queen wheezed with laughter, nearly doubling over. You, alliance with Kaido, are you stupid? He'll kill you as soon as he sees you. Luffy shrugged, a hint of determination in his eyes. Sorry, but this, he suddenly yelled, L4. With that, a barrage of lightning bolts struck down toward Queen, illuminating the battleground with blinding light. As the bolts closed in, Queen's eyes widened in horror. Oh shit, he screamed, barely having the time to react before the lightning hit him, sending him crashing to the ground, unconscious beside Jack. Luffy looked around, surveying the aftermath of the sudden turn in the battle. Well, that was easy, he remarked, wiping his brow with a satisfied smirk. With the two formidable foes incapacitated, Nekomamushi raised an eyebrow in disbelief and relief. You really did it, you defeated both of them in no time. 4 hours later, Queen awoke to a disorienting sight. He blinked rapidly, taking in his surroundings and discovering that he was tied up with some sort of lightning-infused bonds. The more he struggled, the tighter they seemed to become. As he tried to break free, he heard Jack's voice nearby. Don't even bother, Queen. That kid used his devil fruit powers on us, and those bindings are infused with hockey. Just then, Luffy approached, his usual grin plastered on his face. "That's right," he confirmed, looking down at them smugly. "You're as good as dead when Kaido finds out about this," Jack growled, trying to intimidate Luffy. "Oh, don't worry about that," Luffy replied, unfazed. "We'll be going to him tomorrow, and I plan to have a talk with him." Jack, now furious, spat, "You insolent little." Before he could finish, Corona stepped forward, a mischievous glint in her eye. She kissed Luffy on the cheek and said, "Allow me." With a wave, she summoned a ghost to pass through Jack. The spirit streaked straight at him, and Jack's expression changed to one of despair as he muttered, "I wish I'd never been born." Queen, wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before him, asked, "Jack, what's the matter with you?" "Stop this," Luffy chimed in. "Oh, don't worry about it. My girlfriend's devil fruit powers make you feel depressed if the ghost passes through you. But since you seem like the more sensible one between you two, I'll talk to you instead." With that, Luffy activated his Moa Moa powers and shrunk Jack. He grabbed the miniaturized fish man and placed him in a chest, much to Queen's horror. Luffy turned to Queen and said, "Okay, listen. I know you've been Kaido's commander for a long time, but I have to ask you, doesn't it make you sad?" Queen looked at him incredulously. "What are you talking about, Straw Hat?" Luffy's tone grew more serious. His spark, his passion, they're all gone. Kaido is a shallow shell of his former self now, and you know that. What if you could reignite his spark, so he'd be the same Kaido you knew 20 years ago? Listening to Luffy's words, Queen thought to himself, this kid is truly crazy. But if he wants to die, so be it. Finally, he replied with a reluctant sigh, "Okay, boy. I can take you to Kaido, but don't blame me when he kills you." Luffy smiled brightly, undeterred by the warning. "Okay, let's go then." Luffy and Corona returned to the celebration that the minks had thrown in gratitude for their help. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with laughter, music, and the joy of newfound friendships. The minks were grateful for Luffy's strength and bravery, and they went all out to honor the Straw Hat Pirates. As Luffy mingled with the crowd, he learned that not only was Pedro joining their crew, but Wanda had also decided to come along. She had grown fond of both Nami and Corona, but it was clear she had a soft spot for Brook, the fact he was made of bones. Luffy smiled at the development, feeling a surge of happiness. "Man, this is going better than I expected," he exclaimed, feeling elated about the growing crew. Corona hugged him tightly, planting a kiss on his cheek. "Yeah, and this is just the start," she replied cheerily. Then, after a moment of contemplation, she added, "But I have a small favor to ask you." "What is it?" Luffy asked, intrigued. "I know I'm part of your crew now, but could you please spare Moria? I don't want to see him get killed," she said earnestly, her eyes conveying her concern for her former ally. Luffy considered her request for a moment and then nodded with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Corona, I won't. Plus, having a warlord on our side could really help us." Her face lit up with relief at his words, and she hugged him tightly again, kissing him passionately this time. "Thank you." Realizing how much this meant to her, Luffy couldn't help but grin. "No problem. We're all friends here, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep our crew strong and united." The celebration continued around them, filled with dancing minks and joyful revelry. Amidst the festivities, Luffy felt a renewed sense of purpose. With Corona, Pedro, Wanda, and the rest of his crew by his side, he was ready to tackle whatever challenges came their way in the new world. A day had passed since the festivities with their new allies among the minks, and the Straw Hat crew, along with their prisoners, Queen, Jack, and Moria, were aboard Shanks's ship. Luffy found himself deep in thought, wrestling with his plans. As much as he wanted to challenge Kaido in Wano, he knew that even if he managed to win, it could jeopardize his larger plans. He remembered his past fight with Kaido and the life-or-death intensity of that battle. In his mind, Nika spoke gently, having second thoughts. Luffy nodded, responding internally, "Yeah." Nika continued, "I get it, Luffy. But I must also tell you that while your crew is full of potential, they're still not ready. Surely you won't let them get hurt by Kaido's henchmen." Agreeing with his assessment, Luffy asked, "So what do you propose?" "Go back to East Blue," Nika advised. "Train them. Start your journey fresh and return to challenge Kaido and Loki when you're truly prepared." Luffy was concerned about Yamato. But what about Yamato? I can't let her suffer. Nika reassured him with a knowing smile. Don't worry about her. I have a feeling you two will meet sooner than you think. With a sigh, Luffy called his crew to discuss the change in plans. As Zoro, Kuina, Hachi, Corona, Nami, Brook, Pedro, and Wanda gathered around him, Luffy addressed them. Change of plans. We're going back to East Blue, and we'll start our journey in 1 year. Nami was the first to question, what? Why this change of plan? We're not ready yet to face Kaido or Loki, Luffy explained, nodding with certainty. But we will be once we make our way through the new world ourselves. Understanding the wisdom of his decision, the Straw Hat crew members nodded in agreement, readying themselves for the work ahead. Luffy then turned his attention to the chest containing their captured foes. He opened it and restored Jack and Queen to their original size, keeping them securely tied. Listen, you two, Luffy addressed them sternly, you're free to go. But tell your boss to look for me once I get my first bounty. And if you so much as set foot on Zou again, I'll be back, and this time I won't be merciful. Jack, bristling with anger, retorted, you little shit. Tell me your full name so Kaido can put it on your tombstone when he finds you. With a confident grin, Luffy replied, Monkey D. Luffy, the future pirate king. As Jack and Queen departed, the crew turned their focus to the journey ahead. They were determined to train and grow stronger, knowing that when they next entered the new world, they would be ready to take on any challenge and fulfill their destined roles in reshaping their futures. Luffy focused his powers and, with a burst of energy, returned Moria to his original size. As Moria regained his bearings, he immediately began cursing Luffy. You'll pay for this, Straw Hat. He spat, but Luffy quickly silenced him with a pointed glare. When Moria noticed Corona standing nearby, his anger intensified. Traitor, he shouted, directing his fury at her. Shut up, Moria, and listen to me, Luffy interjected firmly. How dare you do this to me? Do you even know who I am? Moria seethed. Luffy sighed. Yeah, a fat ass who's past his prime. Now, you can either hear my proposal, or I'll toss you right into the sea myself. Moria seethed with anger at the remark but reluctantly retorted, I'm listening. Luffy's grin returned. Good, you can work for me. You're a warlord, and no one knows you've been captured yet. So how about you work for me as my spy? You get to live, and trust me, the rewards will be great. Moria considered Luffy's offer, contemplating the benefits. With a smug expression, he finally accepted, saying, okay, I accept. But I have a request. What is it? Luffy asked, curious. Moria smirked and declared, if you fight Don Quixote Doflamingo, he will be my kill. Luffy nodded. Deal. They shook hands, sealing their agreement. Turning to Corona, Moria inquired, where are Hogback and Absalom? Corona responded, Hogback is back on Thriller Bark. As for Absalom, he kind of got dumped on a small island in the Grand Line. Meanwhile, on that small island, Absalom sat on the beach, cursing his misfortune. That Straw Hat and that traitor Corona will pay for this. He growled, frustrated by the turn of events. Back on Shanks's ship, Moria's eyes widened in shock at the news. Absalom's on some deserted island. What a useless fool, he exclaimed. Yet, despite Moria's anger, there was a twinge of annoyance mixed with opportunity now that he was working with Luffy. With the deal with Moria sorted, Luffy turned to address his crew once more. Okay, since we've had this change of plans, I suggest we use our time wisely. I'll ask Shanks if he can get us a small boat, and we'll return to the East Blue. Then, in 1 year, we'll set sail. First, we conquer the East Blue, then Paradise, and finally, we take on the New World. The Straw Hat pirates raised their hands in agreement, shouting in unison, yes, Captain. 2 days later, true to his promise, Shanks had secured a small but sturdy vessel for them. As they prepared to depart, Luffy thanked Shanks once more. When I get my first bounty, I'll announce that we're allies. Shanks nodded, shaking Luffy's hand with a knowing smile. Good luck, Luffy. Once aboard their new boat, Nami asked for their course. Luffy thought for a moment and said, we're heading to the East Blue, but first, we need to make a stop. He turned to Brook, grinning widely. You're going to love this. Brook, puzzled, asked, where are we going? "We're going to see Laboon," Luffy announced. Hearing Laboon's name, the skeleton became emotional. The prospect of reuniting with his old friend brought tears to his eyes. "I can't believe it," he exclaimed, dropping to his knees. "I'll get to see Laboon again." "Thank you, Luffy." Perona, with her usual playful demeanor, teased, "Oh skeleton, Sama, don't cry." Brook wiped his tears, turning to Perona. "Ah, thank you, Perona. May I?" But as he began to ask, Perona playfully sent a ghost through him, causing Brook to fall into a comical state of depression as he lamented, "I wish I was never born." The rest of the crew burst into laughter at Brook's misfortune, the lighthearted moment underscoring the camaraderie that defined them. 5 days into their journey on the small boat, Luffy and Pedro were sparring as the latter helped Luffy hone his sword skills. Though the boat was modest in size, it provided enough space for their training and comfort. Pedro was impressed with Luffy's natural aptitude with the sword and commended him on his progress. During a break, Pedro asked, "What's the new plan now, Luffy?" Luffy smiled confidently and replied, "Simple. First, we take over the East Blue. We'll either make the rulers of useful islands compliant or place our own puppet on the throne." Hearing this, Pedro grinned, seeing the ambition in Luffy's eyes. "I understand. So, what's our ultimate goal besides the One Piece?" Luffy's eyes twinkled with excitement. "You'll see, Pedro. For now, let's focus on getting our crew as strong as possible." Pedro nodded, agreeing with the prudent approach. "Well, Zoro, Kuina, Hachi, Brook, and Wanda are already skilled sword fighters. Nami relies on her staff and that cloud, and Perona's devil fruit is incredibly useful. By the way, what about the 2 you recruited in the East Blue in the previous timeline? You said their names were Sanji and Usopp." Luffy chuckled, thinking of his friends. "We'll pick them up on the way to Dawn Island." Later that night, Luffy volunteered for the night watch while the rest of the crew slept. He found himself staring up at the night sky, lost in thought, when a voice broke the silence. "Hey, Luffy." He turned to see Nami approaching with 2 cups of tea in her hand. She offered one to Luffy and asked, "Want some tea and company?" Luffy smiled warmly. "Thanks, and sure, some company would be nice." The two sat together, talking quietly under the stars. Nami gently rested her head on Luffy's shoulder, a comfortable intimacy settling between them. After a moment, she asked, "Luffy, that scar on your chest, who gave it to you?" Luffy's expression turned serious. "Akainu. He pierced both me and Ace." Hearing the pain in his voice, Nami softly responded, "I'm sorry." Luffy shook his head. "It's okay. It's a dreadful memory that will never happen again." Nami kissed Luffy softly, finding solace in their shared moment. "We won't let it happen again. You will be the king of the pirates, and I will always be by your side, I swear." As the morning sun rose, Luffy gently tapped Nami to wake her. Together, they watched as Brook played his violin, clearly thrilled about the impending reunion with Laboon. Seeing Brook's excitement, Luffy walked over to him and said, "Not much farther now. We'll be at Reverse Mountain in 2 hours." Brook, his eyes shimmering with emotion, replied, "Thank you, Luffy. I can't wait to see Laboon again. It's been over 50 years. He must be the size of a mountain by now." Luffy just smiled, happy to help fulfill Brook's long-held wish. 2 hours later, as they arrived at Reverse Mountain, Brook could barely contain his excitement. He shouted, "Laboon, it's me," with all his might. As those words echoed across the water, the massive form of Laboon emerged, lifting his enormous head from the ocean. Overwhelmed with emotion, Brook called out, "Laboon, it's me." Recognizing his old friend, the giant whale responded with joyful roars, announcing his happiness to the world. The rest of the Straw Hat pirates watched the heartfelt reunion, touched by the sight of Brook and Laboon finally meeting again after so many decades. Meanwhile, Luffy took the opportunity to catch up with Crocus. The old lighthouse keeper was astonished to see Brook, now a skeleton, yet still very much alive. Luffy explained the adventures that had led them there. Turning to Brook and Laboon, Luffy shouted, "Hey Laboon, want to join me, Brook, and the rest of the crew?" Laboon, understanding the invitation, let out a cheerful, excited bellow, clearly eager to accept. Nami, watching the scene unfold, asked, "Luffy, how are we going to bring him to the East Blue?" He's as big as a mountain. Luffy grinned. No problem. I'll shrink him with my Moa Moa powers, and since he's a whale, he can breathe air too. Watch this. Activating his powers, Luffy concentrated, and Laboon began to shrink until he was only about 1 meter in length. Picking up the now tiny whale, Luffy turned to Hachi. Hey Hachi, mind building an aquarium for Laboon when he will be this size and on the ship? Perona, seeing Laboon's miniature form in Luffy's hands, couldn't contain herself. She rushed over, snatching Laboon from Luffy, and began cuddling him affectionately. Though Laboon wasn't thrilled and tried to wriggle free, Perona held him tightly, showering him with affection. With Laboon joining their crew and the Straw Hat Pirates family growing once again, they set sail with joy and hope in their hearts, ready for the adventures and challenges that awaited them on their journey through the East Blue. The bonds of friendship and loyalty only strengthened as they journeyed together, each step bringing them one step closer to their dreams. As the Straw Hat crew finally entered the calm waters of the East Blue, Luffy gathered everyone's attention. First thing, he announced confidently, we need to pick up 2 more people. Zoro nodded. You mean those 2 crew members who were with us in the previous timeline? Nami raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about that, Luffy? Do you think it's better to meet them like this instead of how it happened before? Luffy smiled warmly, leaning in to kiss Nami on the forehead. Well, yeah, but since we have a whole year of training ahead of us, it's best to include them early. And besides, the more prepared our crew is, the better. Pedro, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. I second that. The more united we are, the stronger we'll be when we face the real challenges. Others like Brook, Kuina, Hachi, Perona, and Wanda chimed in, showing their support. Luffy clapped his hands. All right, guys, first we go get Sanji. Oh, and that reminds me, Nami, as a temporary treasure, how much money do we have? Nami counted quickly. Not much, around 10 million berry. But we really need that for the future. Luffy grinned. Hachi, cancel dinner plans. I'm taking everyone to lunch at a place called Barati. The crew erupted into cheers, except Nami, who pouted. Hey, oh, no, you don't, mister. We can't just spend money on luxury like that. Perona leaned closer to Nami with a playful grin. Come on, Miss Stingy. Loosen up. Then, she added mischievously, besides, you, me, and Luffy are going to have a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant. Nami, hearing that, immediately thought about a romantic dinner with Luffy. Her cheeks flushed, and she said softly, okay, but, this is coming out of your meat fund, Luffy. Luffy, feeling embarrassed, bowed his head in confusion and muttered, not fair. The Barati, a legendary floating restaurant, was an impressive sight to behold. Carved from a massive ship's hull, it looked like a grand, intricate palace on the sea, wrought with elegant wooden decks, ornate lanterns hanging from the sides, and a big, welcoming sign with the name, Barati, shining brightly. The restaurant had many decks and open-air tables, allowing diners to enjoy the sea breeze. Its elegant but sturdy structure reflected the marine craftsmanship, with decorations that looked both refined and durable enough to withstand the ocean's harshest storms. As the Straw Hats approached and docked, Luffy immediately noticed something strange. Nami and Perona suddenly appeared from the ship's cabin, both dressed to impress. Perona was wearing a stunning black dress, sleek, elegant, with thin straps and a flowy skirt that shimmered in the sunlight. Nami was dazzling in a gorgeous orange dress, fitted to her figure, with a flowing skirt that swayed as she moved, perfectly suited for a fancy dinner. Perona smiled brightly, stepping closer. Since you decided to take us out for dinner, we decided to dress up. Her tone playful but proud. Nami nodded with a soft smile. Yes, we're your girlfriends, Luffy. And you have to treat us to something nice. Brook, eyes sparkling with admiration, added with a grin, oh, Nami-san, Perona-san, you both look gorgeous. May I see your... Suddenly, Nami's eyes flickered with mischief, and she let out Zeus from her Klimatact, who let out a small lightning bolt, zapping Brook. It was a tiny shock, enough to make Brook yelp and jump back, but it was enough to catch everyone's attention. Perona and Nami both looked at Brook with playful, smoldering expressions, almost like teasing cats, while the rest of the crew burst out laughing at the amusing sight. Zoro, trying to hide his surprise, muttered, "Hey, where did you two get those dresses?" Nami, smirking, replied, "Well, we bought them on our last stop." Her voice dripped with mischief. Zoro, a little flustered, murmured, "Woman," but his words caught in his throat as he realized the intensity in Nami and Perona's gazes, an unmistakable look of anger. Before he could finish, Nami and Perona shot him, as well as Kuina and Vanda, a cold, piercing glare. "Care to repeat that?" Nami asked in a low, threatening voice. Zoro opened his mouth to respond, but suddenly, another lightning bolt from Zeus struck him, the shock making him fall to the ground, stunned and flailing. Nami giggled herself and gently petted Zeus, promising, now, little storm, I'll reward you with some tasty clouds later." Zeus crackled happily, eager for his snack. Perona approached Luffy with a curious expression, her eyes bright. "Luffy-kun, where's Laboon? I haven't seen him around." Luffy smiled warmly. "Oh, he's underwater hunting now. I returned him to his original size so he wouldn't be stuck in that aquarium all day." Perona pouted, cheeks puffed out. "Not fair, he's so cute when he's small." As the Straw Hat pirates entered the Baratie, Luffy was the first to step inside, followed by Nami and Perona, the former clinging to his left arm, the latter to his right. The rest of the crew trailed behind. Luffy's eyes twinkled with anticipation. "Man, I can't wait to taste Sanji's cooking again. But I really can't wait to see his face when he finds out I've got 2 girlfriends." Suddenly, Luffy spotted someone he didn't expect, and his attention snapped to her, a woman with flowing pink hair. His eyes widened in shock. It was Reiju, Sanji's sister. He quickly tried to process her presence, but a voice echoed in his mind, Nika's, teasing him mercilessly. "Ha ha ha, look at your face, Luffy." Quote. Luffy blinked, startled. "You knew?" Nika responded, amused, "Yeah. In this timeline, Reiju escaped with Sanji. Looks like things are about to get interesting." Luffy clenched his fists, determination flashing in his eyes. "We're going to have a serious talk about that later, Nika." The voice chuckled slightly in his head, no spoilers now. Just then, Reiju approached them with a calm but slightly annoyed expression. "Hey, buddy, you want a table for 10? Luffy turned to Nami, who whispered with a hint of jealousy, "Who is that?" Luffy grinned and whispered back, "I'll tell you later." Reiju looked over the group, her gaze analyzing each one, and thought to herself, "Boy, what a strange bunch. The guy with the straw hat is clearly checking me out, while those 2 are obviously his girls. Pervert. And those 2 minks, with their adorable expressions. And is that a floating cloud with a small cap? An octopus fish man. And why is that guy wearing a skeleton outfit?" Reiju then spoke aloud, "All right, your table's ready. Please first hand over your weapons and follow me." The Straw Hat pirates complied, leaving their weapons on the counter. Reiju led them toward their table, walking with confident ease. Luffy looked around, feeling a rush of excitement. Not only was he about to recruit Sanji, but now Reiju as well. This was shaping up to be an incredible opportunity. As the Straw Hat crew was seated at their table, Luffy's face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his ear. Nami quickly grabbed his ear and pulled him toward her, her expression cold and serious. "Luffy," she demanded, her voice sharp, "who is that, and how do you know her?" Luffy rubbed his ear and looked at her in surprise. "Nami, how are you hurting me? I'm made of rubber, and I'm a Logia as well," he replied with a grin. Pedro, who was nearby, chimed in with a calm but curious tone, "Hey, look at Nami's arm." The others followed his gaze and were surprised to see that Nami's fingers, which she was holding Luffy's ear, were actually black. Perona smiled mischievously. "Ooh, I can do it too," she said confidently. She extended her arm and activated her armament haki. Zoro, who was watching with wide eyes, was the most shocked of all. How have I been training for almost a year, and I can't do that?" he exclaimed. Zeus drifted over and said, "That would be my doing." Kuina, listening intently, added, "He's telling the truth. Zeus used to be Big Mom's servant for some time, and she's a master of 3 forms of haki. He's been infused with her devil fruit power, and she often infuses him in Napoleon, her sword, with haki, which explains a lot." Zeus nodded in agreement. Zeus continued, "I know how she does it in detail. I just gave Nami, Perona and Kuina a few pointers and the 3 did the rest." Luffy grinned proudly. Wow, thanks, Zeus. Zeus smiled. Of course, Nami is my master and friend. What kind of friend would I be if I didn't help her? He added playfully, plus, she gives me those tasty clouds to eat. Nami then gently pulled on Luffy's ear again, making him squeal. Luffy, she asked softly, who is she? How do you know her? Luffy looked thoughtful, then muttered, man, this is going to be awkward, especially that pufferfish scenario. Perona teased, come on, Luffy-kun, I think you've got a good answer. Don't you? Luffy nodded confidently. Yeah, I do. Well, she's Sanji's sister. Her name is Poison Pink Reiju. He hesitated before adding, in the previous timeline, we met her just after I ate a pufferfish and almost died. Nami and Perona listened carefully as Luffy recounted the story. When he reached the part where Reiju kissed him to extract the poison, both women suddenly covered their fists with armament haki. They then smacked their fists against his head. Hey, what was that for? Luffy exclaimed, rubbing his head with two steaming bumps forming. Perona grinned, for not telling us sooner. Luffy whispered to Pedro, man, girls are confusing. Pedro nodded, you got no idea, kid. Luffy sat there, pondering how both Nami and Perona would react upon discovering that in the previous timeline, Hancock wanted to marry him. The thought made him nervous and scared all at once. Suddenly, while Luffy was nursing his bruise, he noticed Sanji approaching their table. Luffy knew what was coming the moment Sanji set eyes on Nami, Perona, Kuina and possibly Vanda, though that was up for debate. As Sanji approached, Luffy could see the familiar glint in his eye, a perverted mode kicking in. Sanji, with that signature charming smile, greeted them. My dear ladies, welcome. How may I serve your beauty? Luffy's eyes widened as he instinctively pulled Nami and Perona closer to him, hugging them. Sorry, pal, Luffy said firmly, but these two are with me. Sanji's face shifted from his pervert grin to a sudden depressed expression. He kneeled on the floor, mumbling somberly, not fair, not fair. Luffy watched with a mixture of amusement, thinking, yup, still the same Sanji. Sanji then quickly got back on his feet and bowed. My apologies, sir, he said respectfully. A true gentleman would never harass women who are already taken. His gaze flicked sharply toward Kuina, and he gave her a quick, intense look. Don't even think about it. Blondie. His words trailed off as Vanda glared and spoke. You're not my type human, she snapped. Sanji's face fell into depression again, as if all his confidence had drained away. Luffy, noticing the tension, smirked and asked Perona, hey, did you hit him with one of your ghosts? Perona, smirking mischievously, answered, nope. Suddenly, Reiju appeared with a swift kick to Sanji's head, causing him to stagger. Holding his nose, Sanji looked up and mumbled, what was that for? Reiju shot him a sharp look and spoke firmly, stop acting like a pervert. Now, take these people's orders and get to the kitchen, this instant. Her tone brooked no argument. Sanji was about to protest, but before he could, Reiju kicked him again, a swift, decisive blow, sending him flying into the kitchen door. She then approached their table, apologized softly, and took their orders. Luffy chuckled, don't worry, I'm sure your brother's a good guy. Hearing this, Reiju gave him a seductive smile, winking. No problem, handsome. She then left to relay their orders. As she left, Luffy suddenly received two armament haki-covered hits to the head from Nami and Perona. Both grinned mischievously at him. Luffy, rubbing his head, muttered, what was that for? Nami smirked and replied with a wink, for being such a womanizer. As their food arrived, everyone dug in eagerly. Nami was the first to speak. Wow, that guy may be a pervert, but he sure can cook. Suddenly, a voice interrupted, well, I never thought I'd see you here, Pedro. Pedro turned around swiftly, along with the rest of the crew. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw who was calling him. Smiling warmly, Pedro addressed him, Zeph, you old sea dog. Long time no see. It was Zeph, the legendary owner of the Bharati. Zeph spoke up, what are you doing here, Pedro? Pedro nodded toward Zeph and explained, well, I'm here with my new captain. He pointed toward Luffy, who was busy with a mouthful of food. Zeph looked at Luffy with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. And who is this guy? Pedro chuckled softly and said, "Believe me, he might look like some goofy kid, but he's a real leader and a fighting machine." Luffy, swallowing his food, grinned and said, "Hey, Pedro, don't make me sound like some bad guy." Then, turning to Zeph, he introduced himself. "I'm Monkey D." Luffy, Zeph and Reiju, standing nearby, were stunned. Zeph's eyes widened in surprise. "Monkey D, as in Admiral Monkey D, Garp." Luffy nodded casually. "Yeah, Gramps finally got promoted. Boy, these Marines sure know how to slow things down." Zeph, now visibly shocked, looked at him more closely. "So, let me get this straight. You're related to an admiral and a Marine hero, and you decided to become a pirate." Luffy grinned even wider. "Yup." Hearing this, Zeph burst into laughter. "Man, you've got guts, kid. I see why Pedro chose to follow you." Luffy then looked at Zeph with a confident grin. "Hey, old man," he said casually, "I'm recruiting. I want to recruit Reiju and Sanji. Is that okay?" Hearing this, Reiju protested immediately. "No way, Sanji and I are not leaving. We're not joining a pirate crew." Zeph, rubbing his beard, shook his head and responded firmly, "Take them if you want. They are a liability here anyway." Reiju, overhearing Zeph, shot back, "Hey, old geezer, have you lost what's left of your mind?" Just then, Sanji, who had been listening from the kitchen, came rushing out. He approached Reiju and looked concerned. "Hey, sis, what's going on? Why are you screaming? Did another guy compliment you? And did you break his jaw again?" Reiju snapped at him. "Sanji, this old geezer just handed us over to this pirate crew." Sanji's eyes widened in shock. "What?" Reiju, still annoyed, addressed Zeph. "You old fart, how could you? We're not going anywhere." Zeph, unfazed, shouted back, "Shut up, you two. Listen here." He then kicked Sanji and Reiju with his peg leg, sending them flying into a nearby table. Zeph approached the two siblings angrily and spoke sternly. "Listen to me, you two are the worst employees I've ever seen. Sanji, you're a terrible cook, you spend most of your time flirting with female customers. And Reiju, you're the worst hostess I've ever seen. You're always kicking out customers who give you a compliment after beating them to a pulp. It's for the best if you leave this restaurant." Luffy, seeing the scene unfold, burst into laughter. His loud chuckle drew the attention of Zeph, Reiju, and Sanji. Sanji, crossing his arms with a curious look, asked, "Hey, what's so funny?" Luffy, still chuckling, replied, "Oh, nothing. Just," despite the fact that the old man is a terrible liar. He got up from his chair and looked at Zeph with a grin. "Come on, Zeph, you didn't mean what you said. You know Sanji is an excellent cook. And Reiju, when we first met her, she was nothing but nice to us." Luffy looked directly at Zeph, his voice confident. "You don't really want them spending their lives here, do you?" Hearing this, Zeph started to laugh out loud. "Boy, I must be getting old. I thought my acting was pretty good, but yeah, you're right." Reiju, still stubborn but reluctant, crossed her arms and said sharply, "Forget it. Even if this old geezer wants us to leave, we still have a debt to him. We're not leaving." Zeph, with a stern look, snapped, "Cut the crap. You want to repay me for saving your lives, then achieve your dreams." Sanji, whispering mischievously to Reiju, added, "The all blue." Reiju hesitated but finally nodded, still reluctant. Luffy grinned mischievously. "Hey, how about a deal? We have a spar, me against both of you. If I win, you join my crew. If I lose, I'll leave you two alone." Reiju and Sanji exchanged looks and then smiled confidently. "Okay, you're on. You've got no chance against us," Reiju said boldly. At this, the members of the Straw Hat crew, including Zoro, Kuina, Brook, Nami, and Vanda, couldn't contain their smiles. Zoro, with a smirk, challenged, 10,000 belly that Luffy beats both of them in 3 seconds. Vanda, grinning, added confidently, "You're on. I say 4 seconds. This sparked a lively debate among the Straw Hats about how fast Luffy could beat them, everyone eagerly betting and teasing, excited to see the showdown. Outside the Barati, the deck terrace extended, and the crowd of customers, cooks, and crew gathered to watch the upcoming showdown. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Sanji spoke to his sister, Reiju. "Come on, Sis, let's make this quick, he said with a grin. Reiju nodded, replying, let's go. Luffy was simply standing there, smiling confidently. Let's go, you two. We're on a tight schedule. Hearing this, Reiju spun around and shouted, you sure are cocky. Take this. She extended her leg to kick Luffy, but to everyone's surprise, he caught her leg effortlessly, without breaking a sweat. Luffy grabbed Reiju's leg and looked at her with a smirk. Nice try. And nice pink panties, by the way. Reiju's face flushed with embarrassment. She tried to kick him with her other leg, but Luffy dodged it easily. Suddenly, Sanji lunged at him with a swift kick. Anticipating the attack, Luffy covered himself with armament haki. As the kick connected, it felt to Sanji like he'd hit a block of steel. His kick was blocked completely. Sanji jumped back, crying out in pain. Reiju, witnessing this, exclaimed, Haki. Oh shit. Luffy then shouted Gum Gum Pistol and aimed it at Reiju, who dodged at the last second. Sanji, shocked by Luffy's attack, shouted, what the hell was that? Reiju spoke quickly, Sanji, we have a problem. He knows Haki, and judging by that move, he's got a devil fruit too. Luffy nodded. You noticed? Yes, I have all 3 types of Haki, observation, armament, and conquerors, and I also have the power of 3 devil fruits. Reiju looked stunned. 3 devil fruits? That's impossible. You can only eat 1. Luffy grinned confidently. Really? Watch this. He reached up, grabbed his cheek, and stretched it out with a smirk. This is my first devil fruit, the Gum Gum no Mi. Sanji, eyes wide, muttered, that's a little disturbing. Luffy then picked up 2 pieces of wood lying on the deck and threw them at Sanji and Reiju. Moa Moa, he said. Instantly, the wooden pieces began to grow larger and faster as they hurtled toward them. Just before impact, the pieces shrank back down at the last second, stopping millimeters from their faces. Reiju, startled, yelled, hey, how did you do that? Luffy explained, that's my second devil fruit, the Moa Moa no Mi. It allows me to increase or decrease the size and speed of objects, even enhance my own strength. My limit is 50 times normal. Sanji and Reiju looked at each other, both pale and wide-eyed. Luffy pressed further, and my third devil fruit, he started to glow with a crackling light as lightning surrounded his body. Reiju, visibly shocked and scared, stammered, a Logia fruit. Luffy nodded proudly. Yes, this is the Guro Guro no Mi, a lightning Logia fruit. It grants me the power of lightning. The crowd outside the deck watched in awe at the incredible display of power, realizing they were witnessing a truly formidable opponent. Seeing Luffy's incredible power, both Sanji and Reiju raised their hands in surrender. Zeph, who had been watching everything unfold, spoke sternly, you two, I guess you'll be leaving now. Sanji hesitated. But, old man, we can't just leave. Zeph cut him off sharply. No more talk. I told you, pay me back by finding the all blue. Reluctantly, Sanji and Reiju nodded and headed over to Luffy. Reiju, with a teasing smile, said, well, looks like you beat us, handsome. We accept. Sanji didn't like that much, but he kept quiet. Reiju, on the other hand, called Luffy, handsome, again, which made him momentarily uncomfortable, especially given the thought of him having 2 girlfriends now. The idea depressed him a little, but what bothered him even more was the fact that his sister seemed to have the hots for him. Man, that would be a nightmare during the night, having her constantly eyeing him like that. Luffy, wanting to introduce them to the crew, turned to the rest of the Straw Hat crew. Just then, Laboon suddenly jumped out of the sea, startling everyone, especially Sanji and Reiju, who were both shocked at the massive whale's appearance. Luffy grinned and said, this is our mascot, Laboon. Sanji, eyes wide, exclaimed, what? This whale is as big as a mountain. Perona, seeing Laboon leap out of the water, shouted, there you are. Luffy, make him small again so I can cuddle with him. Laboon, hearing this, started to sweat at the sight of Perona. Before anyone could react, he jumped back into the ocean. Perona yelled after him, hey, wait. Don't go, Mr. Whale. Luffy placed a hand on Perona's shoulder, smiling gently. Maybe next time, he said softly. Perona pouted but then added, okay, but you will have to cuddle with me. Suddenly, Luffy was met with a hockey fist to the head from Nami, making him stumble. Ow, what was that for? He exclaimed, rubbing his head. Nami rolled her eyes and said, for looking up Reiju's skirt, you pervert. Reiju, overhearing, shot a glare and called him a pervert. Luffy sighed loudly, thinking to himself, man, girls are complicated. Nika, in his head, smirked and said, you have no idea, Luffy. The next morning, Luffy was enjoying the fresh air, taking a deep breath and closing his eyes to savor the moment. He then focused, channeling his Thunder Logia powers. Let's see how far I can go, he thought to himself. He began concentrating intensely, his thunder powers growing stronger, thanks to the Moa Moa no Mi. Carefully, he pulled out his sword, Ace, and softly covered it in armament haki. Okay, now let's cover you in thunder, Luffy muttered, focusing his energy. As he started to envelop Ace in crackling lightning, a voice shouted sharply, Luffy. Stop, you're tearing the whole boat apart. Luffy snapped out of his concentration and rapidly turned around. Standing there was a panicked Pedro, along with the entire crew. Luffy realized he almost caused a disaster. Sorry, he began. You idiot, Nami interrupted, eyes narrowing. You could have sunk our small boat. Luffy, now embarrassed, sheepishly said, sorry, guys. I got carried away. The crew gathered together, exchanging looks. Pedro, always the voice of reason, spoke up, listen, Luffy. I think it's time we got a bigger ship. We're getting cramped here. Nami nodded in agreement. Yeah, Pedro's right, and we should also discuss our roles in the crew. Well, I'm obviously the navigator, but everyone should know their responsibilities here. Luffy smiled and said, you're right. I already have a good idea, but first, I need breakfast. Nami, furious, shot him a warning look. No breakfast for you until you do your job. Luffy, desperate, rushed over to Nami, kneeled before her with puppy dog eyes, and begged, not fair. I have to eat, please, Nami. Nami looked at him and shook her head. No, as our captain, you have a job to do. Luffy, still pleading, said desperately, I'll do anything, I swear. Nami hesitated but then smiled mischievously. Okay, fine, you'll make me the queen of one of the islands we conquer. And I want a devil fruit, too. You have to get me one. Luffy froze, surprised. Okay, deal. Pedro, watching the scene unfold, thought to himself, she truly has him wrapped around her little finger. After breakfast, Luffy was sitting in a corner, lost in thought. To him, deciding how to assemble his crew wasn't the easiest thing. He thought to himself, man, how do I assemble all my crew quickly? Suddenly, Nika spoke in his mind. Come on, Luffy, use that brain of yours. It can't be that hard. Luffy replied, Nika, I know, but, you heard Zoro at breakfast. He told me he's declined the position of vice captain. Nika shrugged. Seems like he doesn't feel up to the task, but I gotta say, choosing Pedro was a smart move, rare for you. Luffy, irritated, responded, man, you are an ass. Nika chuckled, you're welcome. Then he added, listen, I'm trying to tell you, don't overcomplicate it. Just go with your gut. And also, think about your future crew members. Think big. Okay, I'm going now, see you. Luffy nodded. Thanks for the advice. As Nika withdrew to the back of Luffy's mind, Luffy wondered, use my gut, huh? Well, let's try. That's it. I got it. Old Man Whitebeard's crew, I got it. This is going to be great. Suddenly, Sanji called out, Luffy. Hey, are you there? We need to talk. Luffy snapped out of his thoughts and saw Sanji and Reiju standing before him. He smiled warmly. Hey, what's up? Reiju responded softly, oh, nothing, handsome. We just need to ask you something. Luffy blinked in surprise and thought. Handsome, huh? He looked at her, puzzled. Sanji's face was irritated as he coughed and said, listen, we're still trying to make sense of this, how you're from a different timeline, and we need to ask you something. Luffy nodded. Is it about your family? Reiju spoke up. Yeah, Sanji and I are from the Vinsmoke family. Sanji added, and, you don't mind. Luffy shook his head. Nope. He then asked playfully, by the way, how come Reiju was a hostess? Didn't Zeph teach her to cook like you? That statement immediately made Reiju blush with embarrassment, while Sanji burst into laughter. He said, "Reiju, cook. Please. She's the worst cook in the world. She almost burned the whole Bharati down when Zeph and I tried to teach her how to fry chicken." Reiju, visibly annoyed, retorted, "It's not my fault. How was I supposed to know what a grease fire was?" Luffy smiled and teased, "Come on, Sanji. I bet she's not as bad a cook as I am." Reiju grinned and, completely unbothered, said, "Thanks, handsome," and suddenly kissed him on the cheek before walking away. Sanji, watching this, was annoyed. How does this guy have two girlfriends? He thought, and it looks like my sister is falling for him too. What the hell is going on? Is this some cruel joke, or is this guy the luckiest man alive? Luffy turned to Sanji. "Sanji, are you there?" Snapping out of his thoughts, Sanji replied, "What?" Luffy continued, "We'll make port in 2 days to recruit our sniper and get a bigger ship. I was also thinking, how would you feel about having Hachi as your assistant cook?" Sanji smiled and nodded. "I'm okay with that. Having help in the kitchen sounds good to me." Just then, Kuina approached Luffy and Sanji, her expression serious. "Luffy, there's a ship approaching," she said urgently. Luffy paused. "A ship?" Kuina nodded. "Yes, and it looks like trouble." Sanji, always ready for action, asked, "Kuina-chan, what's the issue?" Kuina pointed out toward the ship. At the top of the mast, there's a flag of the world government. It suggests it's under their protection. Luffy's expression hardened. "Oh, shit, I know what that means. It's a slaver ship. This could be trouble." Pedro, overhearing, approached and asked, "What should we do? If we attack them, our plan to remain undetected for another year goes up in smoke." Luffy, now serious, spoke firmly, "If they approach us and start trouble, we leave none alive. Plus, if they have slaves on board, we free them." As Luffy feared, the slavers approached their small ship. From the size of the ship, Luffy noticed that it was a large galleon. He thought, that ship looks big and sturdy, perfect. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the galleon. "Ahoy!" Luffy responded, "Ahoy, what is your business?" The man, obviously the leader of the slaver vessel, spoke with a smirk. "Oh, nothing much, just picking up some cargo." He eyed Luffy's crew with a cocky tone. Well, an octopus fish man, 2 minks, and lots of pretty girls. Tell you what, boy, give them to us, and we'll be on our way. Who knows, we might let you live." He laughed, joined by his crew. Luffy's voice turned cold. "You really want to die here, slaver? You've got 10 seconds, or else." 10, 9. The slaver leader, angered by Luffy's defiance, retorted, "Hey, you punk. We are sanctioned by the world government, you can't touch us." But Luffy cut him off. 1. He pointed his finger at the slaver leader and said, "Lightning pistol." A sharp bolt of lightning shot from Luffy's finger, piercing the slaver leader's chest and heart instantly. The man fell, dead before he hit the ground. The other slavers yelled in panic, "Boss! Boss!" Luffy turned to his crew with a surprisingly cold tone. "Kill them. Looks like we've got a new ship." 3 slavers, desperate, fired their guns at Luffy. Using both armament and observation haki, Luffy effortlessly caught the bullets midair. Smiling, Luffy said, "I believe these are yours," as he threw the bullets back at them. Using his Moa Moa no Mi powers, he increased their speed. The bullets hit their targets precisely, killing the 3 slavers instantly. The Straw Hats boarded the slaver ship, determined and ready. What ensued was a swift and ruthless battle. The slavers, now desperate, begged for mercy but were shown none. The most merciless among the Straw Hats were Hachi, Vanda, and Pedro, each determined to end the cruelty. All of the slavers lay dead except for one faint voice that pleaded for pity. Hachi dragged this last slaver to the ground next to Luffy. The slaver, panicked and terrified, cried out, "No, please. Don't kill me, I have a family. Please." Luffy, looking at him coldly, replied, "Why should I care, slaver? Tell me, how many families have you destroyed?" The slaver, now in tears, begged and sobbed, "Please, I'll change, just spare me. I can give you information." Luffy cut him off sharply, "Save it. Now, tell me, are there any prisoners on this ship?" You better tell me the truth before my crew finds them. The slaver quickly answered, only two, a little girl and a fishman we captured. And, we also have 2 devil fruits on board. Luffy, interested, asked, 2 devil fruits. The slaver nodded frantically. Yes, we were planning to sell them and the prisoners after picking up more cargo. Luffy scoffed, you mean more people. Just then, Zoro and Kuina emerged from the ship's hull with a little girl, who was clearly frightened, and a towering white shark fishman. Hachi, upon seeing the fishman, couldn't believe his eyes. Jaws, is that you? The fishman looked at Hachi and replied, Hachi, what are you doing here? Hachi grinned, me, what happened to you? I thought you were in the new world. Jaws sighed heavily. Well, obviously, I was in paradise when these bastards got the jump on me and captured me. Luffy turned to Hachi with a curious gaze. You two know each other? Hachi nodded. Yep, Luffy, this is White Shark Jaws, the former third in command of the Sun Pirates. Luffy approached Jaws, introducing himself courteously. Jaws hesitated briefly, then extended his hand. The two shook hands, establishing a bond. Luffy then approached the little girl hiding behind Jaws. He kneeled down and smiled warmly. Hey, what's your name? The little girl, still scared, replied in a small voice, me. Melissa, sir, please don't hurt me. Luffy gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, you're safe now. Melissa, feeling comforted, smiled back with the beginnings of trust in her eyes. Perona approached Melissa with a gentle smile. Oh, you're cute. Melissa smiled, but her expression changed when she saw the slaver with a sword close to his neck. Tears welled up in her eyes. That man, he killed my mom and took me, she whispered, beginning to cry. Luffy asked her gently, are you sure, Melissa? Through her tears, Melissa nodded. Yes, he and his friends came to our house. He stabbed my mom and took me. He also said, some people would pay handsomely for a cute little girl. Luffy, Perona, Jaws, and the rest of the Straw Hats felt a chilling understanding of what she meant. Luffy spoke softly to Perona. Hey, Perona, why don't you get Melissa some hot chocolate and cookies? She deserves some comfort. Perona nodded resolutely, taking the little girl by her hand. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you something nice. As Perona led Melissa away, Luffy turned back to the slaver, still hopeful he might be spared. The little girl told me some interesting things, Luffy said coolly. The slaver panicked. No, she's lying. I didn't kill her mother. Luffy's voice rose, anger simmering. And the part about selling her to pedophiles, did she lie about that too? The slaver stammered. No, wait. But Luffy, having heard enough, reached for his blade, ace, and with one precise slice, decapitated the slaver. Good riddance, Luffy muttered. Luffy then ordered his crew, throw the bodies in the sea. Looks like we've got a new ship. He approached Jaws next. So, what's your plan? Jaws, smiling gratefully, replied, well, I've got nothing better to do. If you'll have me, I'd like to join you. Luffy grinned. I was just about to ask you that. They shook hands firmly, solidifying Jaws' place as the newest member of the Straw Hat crew. Soon after, Brook and Vanda approached Luffy. Brook, holding 2 chests, said, Luffy-san, we found them. Vanda added, yep, 2 of them, just like that bastard said. Luffy turned and saw the 2 chests they'd brought out, each containing a devil fruit. He knew these fruits would play a significant role in their future adventures. Luffy approached the 2 chests, carefully opening them to reveal the 2 devil fruits inside. He looked at them intently, pondering what kind of powers they held. Suddenly, Nika spoke inside Luffy's mind. I can help you with that. Luffy's eyes widened as Nika's gaze locked onto the fruits. His carefree expression shifted to one of shock. Nika sighed. I don't believe this. Luffy, confused, asked, what is it? Nika responded with amazement. Man, you hit the jackpot. The green one is a paramesha called K's no Mi. It allows the user to manipulate wind. It can even create slicing attacks with wind blades. Luffy raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And the other? Nika's voice grew even more excited. Oh man, I thought it was lost forever. It's called Ken no Mi, model Hattie Tsuki no Okami. Luffy blinked. Hattie, the wolf of the moon. Nika nodded. Yes, This one is a mythical zone. It transforms the user into a giant wolf that can control the moon. Luffy smiled broadly and carefully picked up both fruits. He called his crew over. Alright, we've got 2 devil fruits here. Nami, you told me you wanted one, right? Well, you have 2 choices. Nami raised an eyebrow, surprised. Really? I was joking before, but okay. So, what are the options? Luffy explained what the devil fruits were in detail to the crew. Nami paused, contemplating her options. She seemed to lean toward the wind fruit but then hesitated, thinking about the moon control. Controlling the moon, she thought. How would I look as a wolf? Eventually, Nami reached out and grabbed the Hatitsuki no Okami fruit. Luffy then turned to his crew and asked, "Okay, who wants the other one?" Surprisingly, Kuina stepped forward. "I will take it." Zoro looked taken aback. "Kuina, are you sure?" Kuina nodded firmly. "Yes, unlike you, I don't turn down power when it's offered." Zoro hesitated but said, "All right. It's your choice, but don't expect me to save you if you fall into the sea." Kuina shot Zoro a sharp glance. "Don't count on it." Nami and Kuina both started eating the devil fruits, but as they bit into them, their expressions changed. The taste was utterly repulsive, the flavor was disgusting, and both of them struggled to swallow. Despite their gagging, they managed to swallow the fruits. Immediately, they started to yell in disgust. Luffy and Brook, watching, exchanged a knowing look. "We know," they said in unison. Luffy looked at Kuina with a grin. "All right, Kuina, try out your power first." Kuina nodded confidently. She extended her arm, and almost immediately, the air around her began to swirl and form into visible gusts of wind. She felt the wind guiding her as she swiped her hand forward, and in response, a sharp wind blade materialized and shot through the air, targeting a barrel on the ship. The wind blade sliced cleanly through, splitting the barrel in 2. Kuina's eyes widened in excitement. "Wow, man, this is so cool." Luffy nodded with enthusiasm. "Yay, but try combined your power with your sword." Kuina turned to Luffy, smiling. "That's awesome." Luffy then turned to Nami, recalling what Nika had told him. "Okay Nami, concentrate, feel the beast inside you." Nami closed her eyes and concentrated. Suddenly, fur began appearing and shimmering all over her body. Her arms and legs started to take on the sharp, muscular shape of paws. A silver aura surrounded her as her body shifted, muscles rippling with power. Her face elongated into a wolf's, her ears tapering into pointed tips, and she towered over 6 meters in height. A magnificent, silver-furred wolf with glowing eyes, standing tall and imposing. Nami, now in her beast form, looked down at herself and asked nervously, "How do I look?" Luffy's eyes lit up with admiration. "Wow, you look amazing." Nami, blushing slightly, replied shyly, "Really?" Luffy grinned. "Yeah, you look incredible." He then nodded. "Now, go into your hybrid mode." Nami nodded in response. Once she focused, her body shimmered again as she transitioned into her hybrid form, a powerful blend of wolf and human. Her fur darkened slightly, retaining the silvery sheen, but now she had sharper claws, glowing eyes, and the majestic build of a wolf with human intelligence. Her tail flicked behind her, and her muscles were tense with power. The hybrid form made her look fierce and regal, a true beast of the moonlit night. Perona was sitting in the mess hall with Melissa, sitting comfortably with Zeus floating and flying around them. Melissa loved having Zeus around. She thought he was really cool. Perona was enjoying some hot chocolate, watching the adorable scene unfold. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Nami entered, still in her hybrid wolf form. She called out, "Hey, Perona." Perona looked up, saw Nami, and immediately shouted, "Ah! Monster!" She quickly readied her ghosts, preparing to attack. Nami, calming her tone, said, "Hey, it's me, Nami." Perona, with her ghosts around her, looked at Nami and hesitated. "No way, what happened?" Nami explained, "I ate a devil fruit." Melissa, seeing Nami in her hybrid wolf mode, exclaimed excitedly, "Wow, cool." Without hesitation, Nami then transformed into her full giant wolf form, muscles rippling, fur shining silver, towering over everyone with glowing eyes. Both Perona and Melissa stared at her and exclaimed together, "Big doggy," and ran over to hug her eagerly. Nami, overwhelmed by their affection and excitement, thought to herself, I think this was a bad idea. Zeus, floating nearby, burst into laughter. Ha ha, Nami, you are the alpha wolf now. Nami rolled her eyes. Not funny, Zeus. No clouds for you. Zeus pouted and whined. No. The rest of the day was spent cleaning the new ship and moving their belongings from the small vessel they had before. The new ship was massive, with plenty of space for all the crew, a captain's quarters, a map room, a large dining hall, an armory, and all the essentials needed for a long voyage. Once everything was in order, Luffy sunk the small boat that Shanks had given them. With their new, massive galleon, named the Sea Dragon, they set sail. Luffy approached Melissa, who was playing with Corona, Nami, and Laboon, who was now in his bigger, better aquarium. Melissa loved the now small whale. Luffy called out, So, where can we drop you off now? Melissa, with sadness in her eyes, looked down and said, Well, Mr. Luffy, I don't really have anybody now. Luffy's expression softened. Really? Melissa nodded sadly. No, my mom was the only family I had. Nami looked at Luffy. Hey, why don't you let her stay as a cabin girl? Melissa, hearing this, gasped happily. Yes, please, I'll be good. She looked up at Luffy with puppy dog eyes and said, Please, Luffy. Luffy hesitated but then nodded, sighing. All right, fine. Melissa's face lit up with joy. Yay, I get to play with Laboon, Ms. Nami, Ms. Corona, and Mr. Brook. Luffy waved his hand. Hey, no, you don't. You're a cabin girl now, which means chores first, he said firmly. Melissa puffed her cheeks in frustration. Not fair. Luffy ruffled her hair gently. Life isn't fair, kid. But as soon as you finish your chores, you can play all you want. Melissa saluted him proudly. Aye, Captain. That night, on board the Sea Dragon, the Straw Hat pirates threw a big celebration to welcome Jaws and Melissa aboard, celebrating their new ship. But there was trouble brewing, a little too much drink. Zoro had been convincing Luffy to drink with him. Luffy, a terrible drinker, was hammered. He woke up in his cabin with the worst hangover imaginable. His clothes were gone, and beside him, completely naked, were Nami, Corona, and, to his shock and confusion, Reiju. He looked around in disbelief. Nami woke and leaned down, smiling and kissing him. Good morning, Luffy. Luffy blinked in surprise. Nami, what happened? Nami giggled. Well, you got pretty drunk, thanks to Zoro, and then you and Reiju started flirting and you started kissing when she helped us bring you back here, so we asked her if she wanted to join us. Luffy, now embarrassed, looked away. And you and Corona, don't mind. Nami laughed softly. Nope, she's fun, and besides, I made her and Corona swear that I'm your main girl. Luffy smiled sheepishly. Well, looks like I've got 3 girlfriends now. Nami grinned. Yeah, but how do we tell Sanji? Just then, the door swung open. Sanji stepped inside, looking confused. Oh, sorry, I thought this was the bathroom. His eyes widened as he saw everyone lying around without clothes, including Reiju. His jaw dropped. Luffy, Nami, Corona-chan. His eyes went even wider as he looked at Reiju. Sanji, overwhelmed and pale as a sheath, passed out cold, holding his heart. Nami smiled mischievously, watching him. Well, looks like he knows. Luffy chuckled. I guess so. Luffy stood quietly on the main deck of the Sea Dragon, gazing at the ocean horizon as the wind rustled his black hair. He was deep in thought, his hands resting behind his head. This ship is awesome. Shame it was used for slavery, he muttered to himself. But I'll make sure it earns redemption. A new name, a new legacy. He paused, his face falling into a more serious look. Guess that means I won't be sailing with the Going Merry this time, but maybe that's for the best. At least this way, she won't have to sink like before. Just as he started to drift deeper into his thoughts, a loud and familiar voice broke his silence. This ends now, Sanji. Luffy blinked and turned. Reiju was approaching across the deck, dragging a flustered Sanji by the collar of his shirt. Reiju, this is uncalled for. Sanji protested. No, you don't, mister, Reiju snapped, cutting him off. I'm your older sister, and you're acting like a child just because Luffy's a real ladies' man. Before Sanji could even sputter a reply, she hurled him like a ragdoll. Thud. Sanji landed in a crouch at Luffy's feet, groaning. Luffy blinked, confused. What's going on here? Sanji stood up, brushing himself off. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Luffy nodded. Sure. Sanji exhaled. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I've been acting like a jealous jerk. I guess I didn't expect, well, you, of all people, to be the one charming my sister, Nami, and Perona. Luffy grinned sheepishly. Don't worry about it. The two shook hands. Wham! Luffy hit the deck as Sanji's foot cracked across his face. Ow! What the hell was that for? Luffy yelled, holding his nose. Sanji huffed, arms crossed. For sleeping with my sister, you bastard. Luffy groaned and rolled onto his back. Okay, fair point. He sat up, rubbing his cheek. How about I let you save a damsel in distress as repayment? Sanji raised an eyebrow. Huh. Luffy leaned in and told him what he remembered would happen in Syrup Village. About Kaya, the rich, kind-hearted girl, and her butler Clawhador, who was actually the pirate Captain Kuro, planning to kill her and steal her fortune. As the story ended, Sanji's face twisted with fury. That bastard, using a sweet, innocent girl for her money. What kind of gentleman would let that slide? Nami Swan. How far are we? Nami, nearby with Zeus floating beside her, glanced at the map. About 3 hours at max, if the wind stays good. Sanji clenched his fist. Good. I'm going to train until we get there. And when I see that snake, my legs are gonna do the talking. He marched off with determination burning in his eyes. Luffy, Nami, Reiju, Zeus, Zoro, and Jaws just watched him leave. Jaws scratched his chin fin. You think he's taking this a little too seriously? Luffy chuckled. Maybe just a little. Reiju smirked proudly. That's my brother for you. Nami suddenly frowned. Wait a minute, if he's training, who's making breakfast? Luffy's face went pale. Sanji, come back and cook for us first. Sanji's voice rang out dramatically from the distance. No, I must be ready to save a lady in need. Luffy dropped to his knees. Me and my big mouth. With Sanji still training like a madman on the top deck, spinning, kicking, and muttering vengeance vows, the rest of the Straw Hats went about their day. Hachi, acting as temporary cook, was flipping grilled fish with his 6 arms. Breakfast is ready, he called. After a hearty meal, the crew split up. Luffy, Reiju, and Perona lounged on the sunny front deck, enjoying the breeze. Nami was deep in her maps in the navigation room with Zeus floating by her side, helping with weather readings. Zoro, Kuina, Pedro, and Vanda sparred hard on the training deck, clashing swords, shouting, and coating their blades in black armament hockey. Jaws and Hachi were back in the sea afterward, diving and fishing near Laboon, who happily swam in loops. Brook had taken Melissa aside to play music and tell funny stories. Nearby, Sanji continued his mad training like a man possessed, sweat flying off his forehead as he performed rapid-fire kicks in the air. Reiju sipped her drink, shielding her eyes from the sun. Man, my brother is really taking this whole damsel in distress thing seriously. Luffy grinned. Yeah, he's probably imagining Kaya in danger and planning a 5-course beatdown. Perona floated slightly above the deck, resting her chin on her hands. Hey, Luffy, can I ask you something? Sure, he replied casually. Perona sat up more seriously. You've told us most of what happened in the previous timeline, how things fell apart, how Kuma used his devil fruit to scatter your crew all over the world. She tilted her head, but you never told us exactly where you landed. At that moment, Nami stepped out from the map room, holding a rolled-up chart. Yeah, you told me I ended up on that Sky Island and learned advanced navigation and weather reading, and Zoro and Perona landed on Mahawk's Island. She narrowed her eyes. But what about you, Luffy? All you ever said was, I broke into Impel Down, and Rayleigh trained me for 2 years. Now a crowd was gathering. Sanji, breathless and sweaty, came down from the upper deck. She's right, Luffy, you never said where I landed either. Brook and Melissa joined in, Brook laughing as he recalled his own experience. Yo-ho-ho-ho, Luffy-sama told me I landed in a village that worshipped me like the devil and gave me everything I wanted. Ah, all those panties. Nami glared. Zip it, pervert, there's a child here. Melissa, blinking innocently, asked. Why is Mr. Brook so obsessed with girl panties? Corona gently patted Melissa's head. Don't worry, sweetie, we'll tell you when you're older. Then her eyes narrowed, locking on Luffy. So, Luffy-chun, where did you end up? It must have been a boring island, right? Reiju leaned in with a sly smile. Yeah, you never bring it up. I guess it wasn't anything special. Nami crossed her arms. Yeah, it's not like you were sent to a paradise or anything. The entire crew stared at him. Luffy, now visibly sweating bullets, looked like he'd rather fight Kaido naked than answer. He scratched the back of his head, sweat dripping from his forehead like a faucet. Well, I guess I should be honest now. Everyone leaned in. Luffy's voice was small. Amazon Lily. Crash. A seagull hit the mast and dropped dead from the shockwave that followed. Corona's jaw dropped. Nami's eye twitched. Reiju's polite smile froze in place. Sanji went silent. The name had barely left Luffy's lips before a loud, unified scream echoed across the sea dragon. Amazon Lily, Nami, Zeus, Reiju, Corona, Sanji, and even Brook all shouted in unison. A wide-eyed Melissa tilted her head, tugging gently on Brook's coat. What's Amazon Lily? Sanji, trembling like a man who'd just seen God, answered with reverence. It's a paradise, an island inhabited only by women, all of them gorgeous warrior goddesses, and it's ruled by the most beautiful woman alive, Boa Hancock, one of the 7 warlords. Everyone slowly turned back toward Luffy, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. Luffy sighed, realizing he had no choice now. Yeah, so, I kinda fell into Hancock's bath, while running away from some Amazons. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly. I accidentally saw her naked. She tried to kill me, but then she fell for me. Hard. She even helped me sneak into Impel Down later, and, well, she asked me to marry her. Melissa's eyes sparkled. Wow, Mr. Luffy, an Amazon Empress wanted to marry you. That's so romantic. Brook and Sanji were frozen. Their mouths hung open like broken doors. Brook fell to his knees first. You saw the most beautiful woman in the world naked. Sanji followed, eyes wide with respect and pain. And she asked you to marry her. Then both of them dropped their heads and raised their arms dramatically. We bow to the king of all men. We bow to the king of all men. Luffy, now comically furious, grew shark teeth and screamed. Cut it out, you two perverts. He spun around, and froze. Behind him stood Nami, Corona, and Reiju. Their eyes were shadowed. Their auras were lethal. Reiju's legs slowly rose. Corona's ghost swirled around her fists, both glowing black with armament hockey. Nami's silver and black fur began to cover her limbs as she shifted into her hybrid hattie form, claws glowing black. Nami's voice was low and chilling. And she asked you what? Luffy stepped back, terrified. Wait, I can explain. But it was too late. Corona charged first, launching a flurry of hockey-cloaked ghost fists. Reiju's kick connected with his ribs a second later. Nami leapt forward, claws slashing through the air with wolf-like speed. You saw her naked. Smack, whack, bam. Luffy was airborne. Brook and Sanji watched in silence, both saluting their captain like fallen warriors. He died as he lived, drowning in women's fury. Luffy's voice barely wheezed from inside a crater on the deck. Maybe I should have just said, it was a cloudy day. With Luffy's body still twitching inside the crater punched into the sea dragon's deck, Jaws and Hachi emerged from the sea, both holding large bundles of freshly caught fish. Yo, we got dinner. Hachi grinned, tossing a massive tuna over his shoulder. They approached Pedro, Zoro, Vanda, and Kuina, laying down their impressive haul. But none of the 4 were paying attention to the fish. Their eyes were locked on Luffy, who was head first in a smoking hole, his legs sticking out like a broken scarecrow. Jaws tilted his head. What happened to the captain? Zoro gave a small smirk and answered flatly. Looks like he told them. Hachi blinked. Told them what? Zoro crossed his arms. Where he landed when Kuma scattered us in the original timeline. He then leaned in and gave the short version of Luffy's Amazon Lily story. The bath incident, the crush, the marriage proposal, and the resulting beatdown from Nami, Reiju, and Corona. As the tale wrapped, Jaws, Hachi, and Pedro all looked, deeply conflicted. Jaws scratched his head. Man, lucky and unlucky at the same time. Pedro sighed. I'm not sure whether to envy him, or pity him. Hachi nodded seriously. Yeah, that's a dangerous kind of paradise. Meanwhile, Vanda rolled her eyes. Pervert. Kuina smirked, arms crossed. Serves him right. But then, Zoro's grin widened mischievously as he turned toward Sanji's distant training spot. Hey, guess Luffy never told the pervy cook where he ended up. Vanda's ears perked up. Oh, come on, tell me. Where did that nosebleed freak land? Zoro leaned close and whispered it into her ear. Vanda froze. Then her face cracked into a wild grin. Oh no, biwahahahahaha. She dropped to the ground, rolling with laughter, holding her sides. Pedro blinked. What's so funny? Vanda wheezed between fits of giggles. Oh please, let me tell him, this is too good. She finally calmed enough to gasp it out. The pervy cook was sent to Okama Island. Ha ha ha, silence. Jaws dropped his fish. Hachi covered his mouth. Pedro took a step back. No, Hachi whispered. Not that hellhole, Pedro muttered. Poor guy, Jaws said solemnly. Even a pervert doesn't deserve that. Kuina tilted her head, confused. What's Okama Island? Zoro smirked, resting his sword on his shoulder. An island of dancing, cross-dressing men. They call themselves Okama. Think, full makeup, dresses, muscles, and way too much love to share. Kuina burst out laughing. No way. She and Vanda started rolling on the deck, cackling uncontrollably. Ooh please, Vanda laughed, wiping tears. Let me be the one to tell him. I wanna see his face. Elsewhere on the ship, Sanji, training in the back, suddenly paused mid-kick as a powerful sneeze overtook him. Achoo, he sniffed, confused. Weird, felt like the universe just made fun of me. After a wild morning full of laughter, bruises, and revelations, the crew of the Sea Dragon finally settled down. Luffy, still wrapped in bandages and nursing his wounds, sat against a barrel on deck, a resigned sigh escaping his lips. Perona, Nami, and Reiju had made one thing very clear. You're sleeping outside tonight, no negotiations. Meanwhile, Vanda and Kuina had finally calmed their laughter from earlier, though both still snickered every time they looked at Sanji. The massive galleon drifted gently toward a calm harbor, the coastal edge of Gecko Island. With a loud splash, the Sea Dragon docked. Above the mainsail, freshly painted in bold black and white, the StrawHat Jolly Roger fluttered proudly in the wind. Pedro stood near the helm, arms crossed as he gazed at the shore. So, this is the home of Usopp's son. Luffy nodded, eyes more focused than usual. Yep, time to recruit our sniper. Meanwhile, Sanji stood at the rail like a man ready for battle, eyes burning with fury. Where is that butler? I'll break every bone in his. Clang. A loud metallic impact echoed. Reiju, finally fed up, stood over Sanji holding a frying pan, her expression calm but deadly. Sanji lay on the floor in a daze, clutching his head. Sis, why? Reiju didn't flinch. That was a warning. We're here to recruit our sniper. If you do anything stupid, I won't be so gentle next time. Luffy walked up and helped him sit up, offering a rare look of sympathy. Listen, Sanji, if this is anything like the last timeline, we've gotta be smart about this. He looked out toward the distant village. Kaya still trusts her butler. We need to make him show his true colors. Sanji, still holding his aching head, muttered. All right, Luffy smart. Just then, a booming voice echoed from the nearby treeline. Pirates, you've entered the territory of the great Captain Usopp. Everyone turned. A lone figure stood proudly atop a hill near the village road, cape fluttering in the breeze, long nose high in the air, slingshot at the ready. Tremble before my 80 million men. I, the brave and noble Usopp, shall not let you harm my beloved village. Luffy's eyes lit up with joy. There he is. Perona blinked. Is this the sniper? Nami sighed. According to Luffy's description, yes. Sanji, flat on the ground, looked up and groaned. He's got a cape. Kuina crossed her arms. Well, he does look confident. Jaws whispered to Hachi. You think he really has 80 million men? Hachi replied, deadpan. No. Vanda's tail flicked. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. Luffy grinned. Let's go say hello. From the edge of the village road, Usopp stood triumphantly, slingshot in hand, cape fluttering behind him. You've entered the territory of the great Captain Usopp. Tremble before my 80 million men. Just then, Melissa peeked out from behind Luffy and tilted her head. Mr. Luffy, who's the clown? The words hit Usopp like a cannonball to the pride. What? He choked, stumbling in place, his dramatic posture breaking. He quickly forced himself back into a confident stance, chest puffed out. But as he scanned the crew approaching from the ship, his bravado withered again. No way. In front of him were 2 fishmen, one a towering great white shark, the other an octopus with 6 arms. 2 humanoid animals, a jaguar mink with a sword, and a black and gold dog-like woman with glowing eyes. A walking skeleton with a cane, a blue-hair swordswoman, a dead-eyed girl floating off the ground, and a man with a straw hat and a sword. Luffy stepped forward casually. Yo, Captain Usopp, nice entrance. So, where are your 80 million men? Usopp panicked, eyes darting. Are right here. Suddenly, flags popped up from the bushes behind him. Luffy not impressed, but trying to hold his laughter spoke, those 3 kids in the bushes. From the bushes, 3 kids, Onion, Paprika, and Carrot, popped out in a panic and immediately screamed. Run for it, they bolted. Cowards, get back here, Usopp shouted, chasing after them before stopping in defeat. He turned back and found Luffy standing firm, now looking serious. So, where are your men, boy? Usopp narrowed his eyes. With a gulp, he raised his slingshot and aimed it at Luffy. That was his first mistake. Luffy, never one to miss a chance for drama, pulled Ace, Galdi. Roger's sword, and slowly raised it. His straw hat shadowed his eyes as he spoke with quiet menace. If you aim a weapon at someone, you better be ready to use it. The tension thickened. Then, Jaws stepped forward, cracking his neck. Captain, allow me. He bent down, picked up a massive boulder, and, with terrifying ease, hurled it into the air. As it fell, he opened his jaws wide. Crunch. The giant rock shattered between his teeth like a cracker. Usopp went pale, but it wasn't over. Perona floated up next, arms crossed. Luffy, you can't have all the fun. She levitated higher and summoned 3 large, ghostly spirits, all cackling with hollow eyes as they danced around Usopp. Usopp shrieked, his skin turning blue with terror. Then came Nami's voice. Oh no you don't, you too. He's mine. Usopp turned just in time to see Nami shift. Silver fur spread across her limbs. Her fangs lengthened, a tail swished behind her, and her eyes glowed. The massive silver and black hybrid wolf now stood growling before him, claws ready and sharp. Usopp dropped his slingshot. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, thud, he collapsed, fainted dead away. A beat of silence passed. Melissa, watching from behind Brook, pointed and laughed. Ha, that was funny. Luffy sighed, scratching the back of his head. Yeah, I think we went a little overboard. A cold wet rag slapped across Usopp's forehead. He groaned, blinking his eyes open to see a circle of unfamiliar and mildly terrifying faces staring down at him. Am I dead? He muttered weakly. Luffy grinned, leaning over him with his arms behind his head. Nah, you just fainted. Usopp sat up, suddenly remembering everything. Ghosts, wolves, monsters, he yelped. My crew, Luffy corrected with a smirk. Usopp blinked at him. Wait, you're their captain. Luffy grinned and nodded. Yep, name's Monkey D. Luffy. Usopp's eyes narrowed slightly. Monkey D, Luffy. Luffy leaned in, straw hat tipping forward. I know your dad. Usopp froze. What? Luffy beamed. Yasop. He's with red-haired Shanks. I sailed with them for a while. Usopp's jaw hit the ground. You know Shanks too. Luffy grinned wider. Yep, Shanks is the one who gave me this hat. He tapped the brim proudly. Usopp's hands trembled. You actually met my dad. What's he like? Is he still a great sniper? Does he talk about me? Luffy rubbed the back of his neck. He brags about you all the time. Calls you his son, the future brave warrior of the sea. Usopp's eyes welled up. He remembers me. The moment was genuinely emotional. Then, Luffy's stomach growled, loudly. All right, now that you're awake, is there a restaurant nearby? Everyone face faulted. Zoro sighed. You were this close to sounding like a responsible leader. Usopp wiped his eyes and laughed. Why yeah, there's a place called Mishi. It's not fancy, but they serve huge portions. Luffy jumped to his feet. Perfect, let's go. Within the hour, Luffy, Usopp, and the entire Straw Hat crew gathered at Mishi, the local diner. Villagers watched from windows, whispering about the strange but colorful crew that had arrived. Inside the diner, 2 tables had to be pushed together just to fit everyone. Luffy, dual-wielding meat skewers, was already stuffing his face. This is so good. Usopp, still overwhelmed, leaned closer to the others. So, wait, you guys just came back from the Grand Line. Kuina nodded. That's right, we were with Shanks and Yasop for a bit. Now we're back to gather the right crew. And you're part of the plan, Nami added, sipping a juice, now calm after the Amazon Lily incident. Perona floated by the ceiling, swirling her drink with a spoon. We need a sniper. Luffy said you're the best shot on the island. Reiju smirked. You gonna join, brave warrior? Usopp, eyes wide and hands trembling slightly, looked at Luffy. You're serious? You really want me? Luffy, meat still in one hand, grinned big and nodded. Of course, we're gonna need every brave warrior we can get. With everyone full and the table covered in empty plates, Usopp stood tall atop a chair, cape fluttering behind him as he struck a heroic pose. You were wise to follow the great Captain Usopp. Soon, tales of my greatness will echo across the seas. Crash, everyone at the table collectively shouted. You're not the captain. Usopp wobbled, nearly falling off the chair. What do you mean? I have the hat. I mean, the cape. Luffy chuckled, leaning in casually with a mischievous smile. Hey, Usopp, I got a question for you. Usopp blinked, calming down. Luffy lowered his voice a bit. That big mansion near the hill, who lives there? Usopp's eyes lit up warmly. Oh, that's the home of my friend Kaya and her parents. Luffy's expression froze. In his mind, a familiar presence stirred. In this timeline, her parents never went on that boat trip, whispered Nika inside him. Luffy's eyes narrowed slightly, but he let Usopp keep talking. She's kinda sickly, you know. Real frail. I go there almost every day to tell her stories. Adventures, sea monsters, heroic tales. She loves 'em. He smiled proudly. Says they make her feel better. Says I'm the reason she laughs. Luffy nodded, genuinely touched. But then Usopp's tone soured. But that butler, Clawhador, he's always trying to kick me off the property. Tries to act polite in front of Kaya and her parents, but behind their backs. Total jerk. He even tells Kaya I'm a bad influence. But her parents always back me up. They like me. Say it's good Kaya has a friend. Someone who makes her smile. Luffy's eyes gleamed with determination. He muttered under his breath. Bingo. He turned to Sanji, who had been quietly eavesdropping while sipping tea like a noble knight. Looks like you're gonna get that punching bag after all. Sanji stood up immediately, striking a dramatic fighting pose. Of course, Captain. My legs are ready to deliver divine judgment on that butler. Perona raised a brow. Do you always yell before a fight? Reiju, sipping calmly, smirked. That's him being quiet. Luffy stood up from his seat at Mishi, brushing the crumbs off his vest with a grin. Usopp, this is your lucky day. Usopp, still a little dazed, blinked. Huh. Luffy gave him a serious look, his tone growing bold. Not only are you going to be a hero, you're gonna watch that jackass butler get put in his place. Usopp's eyes widened. Hey, don't get me wrong. As much as I'd love to see that guy get his teeth kicked in, Kaya's dad still trusts him. He's like their head servant. If we go in guns blazing. Don't worry about that, Luffy said, brushing it off. Leave the talking to me. And the kicking. He pointed over his shoulder at Sanji, who was now cracking his knuckles and adjusting his tie. That's my cook's job. Sanji nodded with a smirk. I've been dying to test this new combo kick I call Justice Fillet. Luffy turned back to Usopp, serious again. How long has Kaya been sick? Usopp scratched his head. About 2 years, give or take. Luffy's smile faded. He turned toward Reiju, who had been quietly sipping tea at the end of the table, pink hair swaying. Think you can check if she's being poisoned? Reiju set her cup down delicately, a glint in her eye. No problem. I even know what I'm looking for. She laced her fingers together, her tone going cool and clinical. There's a poison called the lizroot extract. It doesn't kill outright, just weakens the body over time, suppresses appetite, lowers the immune system, and mimics a wasting illness. Perfect for making someone dependent, frail, or too weak to run a company. Usopp shot up, yelling. What, you think that bastard is poisoning her? Pedro, leaning against the window, gave a shrug. Come on, kid, isn't it suspicious? Your friend suddenly becomes deathly sick, right after that guy shows up. Luffy crossed his arms. We need proof. That's why you're gonna help us. Usopp gulped. Oh okay. What do I do? Luffy smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. You're going to the mansion. Tell Kaya's dad that Captain Luffy wants to reinforce his ship, and he wants their company to handle the job. Usopp raised an eyebrow. Wait, how do you even know about their boat company? Before Luffy could answer, Jaws leaned in, arms crossed and giving Usopp a, don't test me, look. Look, kid, do you want our help getting the girl or not? Usopp's face turned beet red. She's not my. Perona giggled midair, spinning upside down. Hara hara hara. Oh come on, you're totally sweet for her, long nose. Vanda, tail flicking, added with a teasing grin. You blush every time someone says her name. It's adorable. Brook tilted his skull. Yo ho ho, is it true love? A romantic tale for the ages. Usopp buried his face in his hands. You, why me? Luffy chuckled, walking for the door. All right crew. Mission, expose the snake, is on. Later that afternoon, Usopp returned to the Sea Dragon, panting but excited. Okay, Kaya's dad agreed to meet with you. Said he's curious about your ship and your offer. Luffy grinned. Perfect. Time to meet the folks. The crew cleaned up and made their way through Syrup Village, turning heads everywhere they went. By the time they reached the gates of the mansion, they were already the talk of the town. The grand iron gates opened slowly, revealing a beautiful garden and a wide stone path leading up to a lavish two-story estate. At the door stood 3 figures. The first was a tall, broad-shouldered man in a fine brown coat with silver trim, salt and pepper hair slicked back, and a thick mustache. Welcome. I am Cornelius Altera, head of the Altera family and owner of Altera Marine Works. Beside him stood a dignified woman in a violet dress and pearl necklace, with warm eyes and a quiet smile. I'm Alina Altera, Kaya's mother. Please forgive the humble welcome. Between them stood a pale, slim girl with long blonde hair in soft curls. She leaned on a walking cane for support. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity even as her body showed obvious weakness. Hello. I'm Kaya. Thank you for coming. Reiju, eyes trained on Kaya, leaned close to Luffy and whispered under her breath. Definitely being poisoned. She's showing all the signs of the lizroot extract. I can smell the trace on her breath. Luffy's eyes narrowed slightly but kept his tone bright. Thanks for having us. This is my crew. Brook stepped forward first, bowing low with his cane. I am Brook, musician, swordsman, and dead gentleman. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Kaya gasped, covering her mouth. Skeleton. Cornelius narrowed his eyes in shock, but Alina simply smiled politely. Jaws and Hachi bowed in a more formal manner. Jaws, said the great white shark fishman, former sun pirate. That's Hachi. He cooks. Cornelius raised an eyebrow. 2 fishmen. Rare company in these parts. Perona floated forward next, slightly upside down, her parasol resting lazily over one shoulder. I'm Perona, ghost girl. My devil fruit lets me summon and control ghosts. Kaya's face lit up. That sounds amazing. Can I see? Of course. With a snap of her fingers, Perona summoned 3 large, floating ghosts, each with blank eyes and squishy round bodies. One wobbled in front of Kaya and gave a slow, goofy spin. Negative, negative, negative. Kaya laughed for the first time since they arrived. That's so cool. Cornelius, however, was still focused on the rest. His eyes fell on Pedro and Vanda. You too, you're minks, aren't you? Pedro nodded. You've met minks before. Cornelius gave a small smile of reminiscence. Yes, a long time ago, when I was just an apprentice at Water 7, working for the Galila Company. I trained under Master Tom, alongside Iceberg and a wild little shipwright named Frankie. Luffy's eyes widened. Wait, you know Frankie? Cornelius chuckled. Big, loud, refuses to wear pants. Yeah, that's him. Funny guy. Reiju glanced at Kaya again, her fingers lightly tapping a vial at her belt. If we're lucky, I can catch the butler in the act. Luffy gave a slow nod, still smiling. Then let's give him a reason to show his hand. The wide double doors of the Altera mansion opened with a soft creak as Cornelius led Luffy and his crew inside. The grand entrance hall gleamed with polished marble floors and golden chandeliers. Servants bustled quietly in the background, but one stood at the center of the stairs, arms behind his back, glasses glinting. A tall man with slick black hair and sharp, calculating eyes. StrawHat. His smile was stiff. Sir, may I ask, who are these people you've brought to the estate? Cornelius adjusted his collar and gestured to Luffy with an open palm. Potential business partners. Captain Luffy here is interested in ship reinforcement. Thought it would be worth discussing. Usopp stepped beside Luffy proudly. StrawHat's gaze hardened. I wouldn't advise that, sir. These people are clearly aligned with that liar. He pointed sharply at Usopp, venom in his voice. He does nothing but fill your daughter's head with nonsense. Cornelius frowned slightly but didn't raise his voice. Usopp is a nice kid. He talks a lot of nonsense, sure, but he makes my daughter smile. That's more than I can say for you. StrawHat's face twitched. Sir, with all respect, I still believe Miss Kaya should not be consorting with the son of a two-bit pirate who abandoned his family. Oh, Luffy interrupted casually, stepping forward. You're very brave, butler. StrawHat narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Luffy smirked devilishly. I said, you sure have guts. It's either that, or you're really stupid, to insult a Yonko's third-in-command like that. StrawHat's posture shifted. What? Luffy turned to Usopp, patting his back. Usopp's dad, Yasopp, is the sniper for red-haired Shanks, and third-in-command of his crew. Me and my crew just came back from the Grand Line. We sailed with them for 6 months. His grin widened. We're very good friends with both Shanks and Yasopp. He raised an eyebrow. Should I call him and tell him a tacky suit-wearing butler insulted his son? StrawHat's throat twitched. Why, you're bluffing. Kuina rested her hand on her sword. Yeah, then keep talking. Maybe Shanks will slice you into dust. The tension hung like a blade over the room. Even the servants paused in the background. Luffy's eyes narrowed, deadly serious now. Then again, you're not exactly known for being brave or smart, are you? He took a step forward. Isn't that right, Kuro? StrawHat's blood ran cold. Cornelius, Alina, Kaya, and Usopp all froze at Luffy's words. Kuro. Cornelius's voice cracked with confusion and rising horror. What is the meaning of this? Luffy's expression hardened, his tone turning cold and commanding. Sir, your butler is not who you think he is. He glanced briefly at Kaya, whose pale face was tightening with realization. Tell me something. Don't you find it strange that Kaya started getting sick just months after you hired him? Cornelius's eyes widened. No, don't tell me. Reiju stood up from her chair, her eyes glowing slightly with violet light. He was poisoning her. The room went silent. I have a unique ability, Reiju said clearly, her voice echoing slightly. I can detect poison by scent and neutralize it with my body. I smelled Velizroot extract on Kaya the moment we arrived. She turned slowly to Kuro. And I smell it on you too. The vial is in your pocket. Kuro's eyes widened, and for a moment, the composed butler mask cracked. Gasps rang out from Kaya and her parents. Usopp stepped in front of Kaya instinctively, hands balled into fists. Luffy crossed his arms and kept going. This man's real name is Kuro of the Thousand Plans, though I'd call him Kuro of the Thousand Blunders. He faked his death 2 years ago. Disappeared without a trace. I'm guessing he's been slowly poisoning Kaya ever since, planning to make her weak and dependent. Reiju added coldly, then eliminate the parents quietly. Probably make it look like an accident. And after that, Luffy continued, he'd wait until Kaya was gone too, and take everything. The mansion, the company, the inheritance. He took one step closer. What's the matter, Kuro? You were always a coward. Too much of a worthless worm to face the Marines. You think no one would notice a dead pirate crawling back into the world? Luffy smiled, but it was anything but kind. I bet my grandpa would love to hear a dead man like you is still alive. Cornelius stammered. Why your grandfather? Luffy's grin widened. Yeah, Admiral Monkey D. Garp. Marine hero. My gramps. Kuro's calm finally shattered. His smile twisted, cold fury in his eyes. So, the ruse is up. He reached inside his coat, and in a blur, drew his infamous cat claw gloves, the razor-sharp steel extensions glinting in the candlelight. Then I'll just take the family with me. And leave nothing behind. He lunged. But before he could make it even 3 steps. Clang. A hand clamped around his wrist like a steel trap. Nami, standing cool and calm, didn't flinch. Don't even think about it, scaredy cat. Kuro's eyes widened in panic. Why you? Suddenly, Nami's skin shimmered, fur sprouting along her arms. Her pupils became slitted, her muscles tightening under her clothing. In an instant, she shifted into her hybrid wolf form, a silver and black lunar beast with a growling aura and fangs sharp enough to make Kuro freeze in terror. What are you? Nami's voice was calm and cold. The last mistake you'll ever make. With a simple flick of her arm. Crack. Kuro's wrist snapped like a twig. He screamed in pain. Thud. And then went sailing across the room, landing hard at Sanji's feet. Sanji cracked his knuckles, stepping forward with a predator's grin. Thanks, Nami Swan. He glanced down at the trembling ex-butler. Now then, shall we dance, Mr. Cat Claws? Kuro lay crumpled on the marble floor, wrist shattered, breath ragged. Before he could recover, Sanji stepped forward. The butler turned pirate scrambled to his knees, raising one clawed hand in a weak attempt to defend himself. Stay back. Sanji cracked his neck. You dared to poison a sick girl, terrorize her family. His eyes darkened, and worst of all, he vanished in a burst of speed and reappeared midair above Kuro. You disrespected a lady. Wham! Sanji's heel crashed into Kuro's shoulder, slamming him into the ground again. Kuro coughed blood. He staggered upright, swinging wildly with his claws. Sanji leaned back, avoiding each slash with perfect grace, as if he were dancing. Too slow. Crack. A spinning kick to the ribs. Too sloppy. Wham! A rising leg drove Kuro into the wall. Too pathetic. Kuro tried to run. Panic now in full control, but Sanji launched forward like a bullet. And then came the final blow. And this. Sanji leapt up, flipped, and drove his leg down. Straight into Kuro's groin. Crack. Kuro screamed like a banshee, crumpling into a twitching heap on the floor, hands clasped between his legs, eyes rolling back. Everyone winced. Even Luffy instinctively crossed his legs. Sanji stood over the broken pirate, calm and collected. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a match, and struck it. FWSSSHHH. The flame lit the dim room briefly as Sanji lowered it to Kuro's twitching, pain-racked face. He lit his cigarette, took a single, slow drag, and said, cool as ice. That's what you get, for disrespecting a lady. Sanji exhaled a long drag from his cigarette as Kuro twitched at his feet. The room was dead silent, for a moment. Then, dude, Pedro walked up first, arms crossed. That was a little excessive. Jaws scratched the back of his head. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but damn, you snapped his soul. Zoro nodded with a sigh. Even I flinched. And I've decapitated people. Hachi gave a nervous chuckle. Sanji, you hit him real hard where the sun don't shine. Brook, ever dramatic, covered his empty sockets. Yohohoho, I felt that in my non-existent bones. Sanji, still completely unfazed, blew smoke from the side of his mouth. He insulted a lady. He's lucky I didn't cook him in garlic butter. Cornelius Altera stepped forward then, placing a firm hand on Luffy's shoulder. Captain Luffy, I can't thank you enough. You saved my daughter, and our family. Alina bowed her head respectfully, her eyes shining with relief. Kaya, still shaky, nodded with tears in her eyes. Cornelius continued, whatever you need, it's yours. Luffy grinned. Awesome. I want your shipyard to reinforce my ship. Nami immediately yelled from across the hall. Luffy, you idiot, you were supposed to ask for it for free. Luffy scratched his head sheepishly. Oh, right. He looked back at Cornelius. Also, I need a favor. Cornelius nodded. Name it. Luffy's expression turned serious. There's something I need to expose. A crime no one paid for. He took a deep breath and continued. Have you heard of the Grey Terminal fire? A huge blaze in the Goa kingdom that killed hundreds of people in the trash heap outside the walls. Cornelius's face tightened. I've read reports. Thought it was an accident. Luffy shook his head. It wasn't. It was a cover-up. A purge of the poor. Ordered by nobles. He looked Cornelius in the eye. And one of them was the father of my brother, Sabo. There was a collective shift in the room. Luffy kept going. I want you to host a party. Invite your noble friends. I'll send word to Sabo's parents through official channels. We'll be there. My crew. My grandfather, Admiral Garp, and a few Marines. And I want that man to be forced to confess. Publicly. In front of a crowd, and a Navy admiral ready to haul his sorry ass to prison. Cornelius's expression hardened. Something like that can't go unpunished. I'll help you. Luffy turned back to the mess on the floor. Kuro, still unconscious and twitching slightly. Hey Jaws, throw this trash in the brig. Lock him in one of the ship's cells. On it, Jaws rumbled, grabbing Kuro's collar and dragging him out. Luffy called over his shoulder. Zoro, Kuina, once he's stable, take him to the nearest marine base. Bring back the bounty. Both swordsmen nodded with cool determination. Got it, Zoro said. He's not getting out of our grip, Kuina added with a sharp smile. Kuro, once the Thousand Clan mastermind, was now nothing more than a broken traitor about to face the world he thought had forgotten him. And for the first time in years, justice was coming. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.